Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has biomass bloodline naruhina. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NorthSouthGorem and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. The mountains of the land of fire trembled in the wake of the Kyuubi no Yoko. It had appeared out of nowhere, reducing the land around it to dust in its sudden fury. The citizens of Konoha could not understand what would cause the great Biju to attack them. But attack them it did, and no attack that they could produce could defeat it. In the end, as it neared the village gates, Minato Namikaze, their greatest shinobi and leader, came up with a plan to defeat the giant fox, as it was not possible to kill it. The plan was simple yet immensely difficult at the same time. Minato would summon the Shinigami himself to seal away the Kyuubi in the Shinigami's stomach. Unfortunately, he would only be able to seal away one half of the fox in this manner. As for the other half, he surveyed the valley from above, standing atop his trusted summon, the mighty Gamabunta. The Kyuubi was roughly the same size as the mountainous toad, making its large eyes about level with Minato. "Foolish human," roared the Kyuubi. "Any plan you use will ultimately fail against me." "We'll see," thought the Yondaime. He looked down at the small bundle in his arms. His own son, born just a few hours ago, as well as the most important part of his master plan. He would seal the other half of the Kyuubi into his own son and make him a Jinchuriki. As he initiated the summoning process, he failed to notice a pair of eyes watching him. Alex Mercer stared, fascinated, as the Yondaime began forming his hand signs. He had been to other versions of this world many times before, but never had he been able to witness this. The moment of truth. The sealing of the Kyuubi. As he crouched in a tree, far away from the actual fight, a sudden thought occurred to him. Wait a minute. If this is one of the most important moments in the history of this world, what am I doing in a tree? I need to see this close up. With that, Alex gave a mighty leap, soaring towards the two creatures. Gliding to a stop, he raced up one of the Kyuubi's legs, eventually finding a seat by one of its rabbit-like ears. As he sat there, shifting with the fox's movements, he chuckled to himself. After all, how many people could say they had ridden on top the head of the strongest of the 9 Biju? Even better, without said Biju noticing and attempting to annihilate him. Emerging from this train of thought, Alex was just in time to notice a terrifying figure appearing behind Minato. This was the Shinigami, summoned to seal the Kyuubi away within the Yondaime's son. Working slowly and dramatically, he seized the Kyuubi, causing Alex to tumble off, and began slowly sealing the great beast into the infant. As a being that was millennia old, Alex had been able to amass an unimaginable amount of power. Because of this power, or rather, the confidence that went with it, he tended to do or say things that could get him in a lot of trouble. Especially when irritated by, for instance, having his seat yanked out from under him by the god of death. Having been ticked off, he took a deep breath before shouting. "Hey you stupid oaf. Give a guy some warning before you dump him on the ground." The Shinigami paused in his sealing, annoyed. He would deal with the loud pest later, but for now he had a seal to finish. Fuming, Alex was suddenly visited by a voice. In order for events to progress as they must, the Shinigami must become angered with you. Occasionally, he would be told that there was some action he should perform and that it would result in something important. He had no idea where the voice came from. Most likely, if he were to ask his friend, Farwalker, he would probably just tell Alex that the world was speaking to him or some other crap. He didn't know why either, but he knew that he should listen. The voice had never let him range entirely. So, the problem was what would he say or do? As he continued to stare, he noticed the slow, dramatic way the god was moving as he was sealing. He thought, judging by all the theatrics, it seems he's rather proud of that seal. Wait. I can use that against him. I am such a genius. Grinning confidently, he shouted out to the Shinigami. "You call that sealing? I bet I could make something better than that crappy seal in 5 minutes." The second part was, of course, complete bullshit. However, it succeeded in infuriating the Shinigami. Said deity was wondering what he could do to silence the cretin. How dare that worm insult his great work of art? But what should I do? He wondered. I still need to finish this seal, and until then. An evil grin suddenly found its way across his face, a difficult thing for one to accomplish when one carries a knife in their mouth. Wait. If he hates my sealing that much, I'll just make him admire it from the inside. Little did the Shinigami realize what a stupid move this was on his part, as he was now trying to seal away more power than the seal was originally designed to restrain. Not to mention that this would violate the contract he had made with the Yondaime. Also, as two beings had never been sealed into one person before simultaneously, no one, not even Kami, could foresee the repercussions of these actions on the Jinchuriki. However, as previously stated, the Shinigami was not thinking of such minor details. Drawing himself up to his full and admittedly impressive height, he reached out with a long purple arm and seized Alex in a tight grip. Normally, Alex would have escaped almost instantly, but in this case he had his instincts telling him, again, to his irritation, that this needed to happen, so, gritting his teeth, he did nothing as the Shinigami began sealing him into the boy along with the Kyuubi. This had better be worth it. He thought, before the darkness claimed him. Chapter 2. 5 years later. Alex opened his eyes to find himself in a long, dark tunnel. As he looked around, dozens of thoughts were drifting through his head. Most of them, however, eventually led to a simple statement from the viral man. "Well, this is boring," he muttered to himself. Sighing, he decided that he'd better get going. Problem is, which way do I go? Looking down, he noticed a stream of water flowing past him to the right. "Alright," he said decisively, "left it is. Don't need to see where it ends up, so I might as well see where it's coming from." And so he set off. As he walked, Alex began filling his mind with meaningless imaginings. These weren't meant to do anything, just give him something to distract himself from the monotony of his surroundings. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't notice the walls of the sewer. The tiles in the walls were warping as he strode past, becoming intricate yet random and interlocking engraved lines. At the end of the tunnel, the Kyuubi suddenly sat up in its cage. "What is that?" it wondered. "Something powerful is coming this way. What is it? And why did I never notice it before now?" Straining its ears, Kyuubi could faintly hear footsteps. "Who's there?" called the fox into the dark tunnel before it. "Show yourself." Still nothing. The Kyuubi tried again. "Please?" it asked tentatively. "Well, since you ask so nicely," came a sarcastic voice. A strange man dressed in black ambled out of the tunnel. Alex blinked, blinded by the relative brightness of the chamber. "Turn it down, will ya?" Instantly the lights dimmed and Alex smiled in relief. "Thank you," he called. The Kyuubi's jaw dropped in astonishment. How did you do that?" it asked, stunned. "And who are you? How did you come to be here?" Alex shrugged. "Couldn't tell you the first one," he said. "But I have a few questions for you. Some of which you could probably answer. If you do answer them, I'll answer any of your other questions. Understood?" The fox nodded. "Right then," Alex said, rubbing his hands together. "First, and this is rather important, are you a girl?" Kyuubi stared down at the man in surprise. No one had ever bothered to ask that before. They just saw the destructively rampaging fox and assumed she was male. After a moment of silence. "Yes," she muttered, slightly embarrassed. Alex nodded, satisfied. "Thanks. Just wanted to get that out of the way." Seeing the now confirmed vixen's confusion, Alex elaborated. "Better I find out now than cause us both intense embarrassment in the future. Anyway, second question, how long have you been here?" Kyuubi thought it over for a while. "I can't really tell," she said, finally. "There's no way, check the time down here. Plus I've kinda been sleeping a lot. But if I had to guess, I would say it's been 5 years." Alex hissed slightly through gritted teeth. 5 years. He muttered to himself. Such a long time. "But no matter, that's all I wanted to know. I'm sure you have a few questions of your own. Ask away." The Bijuu tilted her head to the side, trying to decide what to ask first. Finally, she decided and asked. "Who are you, human?" Alex smiled, bowing slightly. "I am Alex Mercer," to that first part. "But as to that second part," he continued, his face becoming serious, "I am not a human." "Then, what are you?" "I am afraid that answer shall have to be postponed, don't worry," he said quickly, seeing the Kyuubi about to argue. "I will answer you eventually. It's just that there is someone else who must be present when I tell you, as he will want to know the same thing. It's just more convenient to tell both of you one time. What I will tell you is. I am a being of immense power who has traveled a long way." "Very well. Speaking of here, where are we?" "The last thing I remember was seeing a man. He was wearing a black cloak with red clouds and had red eyes. The next thing I knew, I was trapped in this cage." Alex listened to the fox's recounting intently, mulling it over in his head to see if it made sense. If she was telling the truth, it would explain why she had been acting so arrogant during the rampage when she's so much more pleasant now. Also, she had seen a man in a black cloak and red eyes. Wait a minute. The Kyuubi, who had lain down, jerked in surprise. That man, was he wearing an orange mask? "No, I just remember that his eyes were red," she said simply. "Besides, you still didn't answer my question. Where are we and how did I get here?" Alright. 5 years ago, you attempted to destroy the village of Konohagakure no Sato and killed hundreds of people." Seeing Kyuubi's look of shock, Alex continued bluntly. "Eventually their leader, the Yondaime Hokage, managed to seal you away at the cost of his own life." Kyuubi frowned. "But I am the most powerful of the 9 Bijuu. But even if he sacrificed himself, it still wouldn't be enough to hold me. There was something else, wasn't there?" Alex nodded. Two somethings, actually. One thing was that he sealed you away using the power of the Shinigami himself to make a seal. The other thing was at this, Alex's expression turned somber. He had to use his own newborn son as your vessel and make him a Jinchuriki. The Kyuubi's eyes widened at this new information. After a moment, she laughed to herself. How long she had boasted to the others about being impervious to the human sealing attempts. Yet here she was now, in a prison stronger than any human could make. Suddenly, another question came to mind. But how are you here? Also, judging from your earlier comment, you've been sleeping all this time. So how do you know all of this? Alex's mouth twitched in a slight smirk, amused by some unknown joke. Well, for one thing, I was present at the sealing, so of course I know of the attack. As for the other stuff, he shrugged. I've been through other versions of this same world, so there are going to be consistencies. Kyuubi was processing this when something that had been nagging came to the surface. What about the boy? The one we're supposedly sealed in. What's happening to him? At this, Alex's face twisted into a scowl. Those stupid villagers are happening, that's what. When they look at him they believe that he is merely you in a human body. They blame him for all the destruction and deaths that occurred during the attack. He began pacing furiously. So they all beat him, refused to allow him into their shops. Right now I could count on one hand the number of people who care about him. His rant was eventually interrupted by a comment from Kyuubi. A simple statement that, coming from the fox, stopped him in his pacing. I wish we could do something to help him. She opened an eye to see Alex staring at her, stunned. What? Alex shook his head. You have no idea how weird it is to hear you say that. We've just met. It shouldn't that surprising. She snapped, feeling stung by the comment. I've met alternate versions of you. Trust me. What you've said is not something any of them would say. But hey. That's not a bad thing, it just makes you never mind. Back to the subject at hand, I do, in fact, have a way to help the boy. Alex strode to the approximate center of the chamber. Turning towards the cage, he raised his arms above his head, an aura of a black smoke-like energy rolling off him. With a roar, the energy exploded off him in all directions, impacting the walls, the ceiling, and the cage bars. Kyuubi jumped back in surprise, or as far back she could within the confines of her cage. What the hell was that? Alex lowered his arms, panting. I infused my power with the mindscape, providing him with one of my abilities. He grinned, showing a mouthful of shark-like teeth. Let's see the villagers try and harm him if he can sense them coming. Alex's leg suddenly gave way, bringing him to his knees. He gritted his teeth. Damn. Using my power in here seems to make me tired. He then calmed. I think that's my cue, turn in for the night. With that, he waved his hand at the wall to the side of the chamber, causing a simple bed to appear there. As he crawled into it, Kyuubi gazed at him concernedly. It was odd, she barely knew him yet she was already worried about him. Are you alright? She asked as he lay face down. Why yeah, he mumbled, I'm just really tired. Don't worry Kyu-chan, I'll be fine. Her eye twitched at the nickname. Don't call me that. She barked, causing Alex to flinch from where he lay on the bed. If you have to call me something, call me Kina. It's better than Kyu-chan. Whatever you say, Kyu-chan. Muttered Alex, face down on his bed. Oh, forget it. She growled disgustedly. I'm sure he'll get it eventually. Hey, Kina-chan, sounded Alex's voice. What? She asked suspiciously. There's something else from when I did the whole power infusing thing. Something that will get you a bit more freedom, though it can't completely get you out of the seal. What is it? You'll see, Kina-chan, said Alex, throwing her one last shark-like smile. I'm sure you'll find it worth it. Night, Kina-chan. Chapter 3. 8 years later. Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, who had been deep in his own thoughts, jerked in surprise. The Nidaime Hokage. He shouted. That wasn't what I was asking. Snapped Haruka Yamino. Naruto scowled. Damn it. That usually works. He muttered as the rest of the class laughed. We were reviewing the uses of the Bunshin Jutsu and its variants, groaned Haruka, rubbing the bridge of his scarred nose. You should be paying attention, the test is tomorrow. Not like it'll help you, though. Sneered Kiba Inuzuka, his dog Akamaru barking in agreement. It was well known among the students that Naruto had failed the Genin test twice due to his horrible chakra control and consequent inability to correctly perform the Bunshin Jutsu. Troublesome, grumbled Shikamaru Nara, laying his head on his arms. His friend Choji Akimichi nodded silently while loudly munching a handful of chips. Shino Aburam turned his head to the back of the classroom, checking to see the reaction. His eyebrows shot up and his head shot round to face the front of the room, sweat dropping. The source of his discomfort, Hinata Hyuga, was glaring at Kiba from across the room. Next to Naruto, Sasuke the last Uchiha merely grunted as he stared brooded out the window. On Sasuke's right, to his displeasure, was his number-a-half fangirl, Sakura Haruno, smirking up at her number-a-half rival. Ino Yamanaka. It's so difficult to figure out which rank is which among fangirls. They all claim to be number one. I, team. Snarled Naruto. I will make those clones and become a ninja. Then I will become Hokage. Everyone groaned, except Hinata, who gazed at Naruto admiringly. It seemed they couldn't go one day without Naruto, reminding them of his ridiculous dream. Enough. Barked Iruka. Alright, that's enough about clones. Let's move on to the henge. Naruto, you first. Grumbling, Naruto trudged down to the front of the room. He spun round, grinning suddenly, to face the class as he formed the hand seals. Henge. He cried, as a cloud of smoke erupted around him. As the smoke cleared, Iruka gaped in astonishment. In Naruto's place stood a curvy blonde girl, clad only in a few stray wisps of smoke. Smiling seductively, she rubbed herself against Iruka. Is this good, sensei? She murmured in his ear. Iruka's response was to rocket backward under the power of an enormous nosebleed. There was another blast of smoke, revealing Naruto again, who was doubled over with laughter. Take that, you perv. He crowed. I call it the Warak no Jutsu. He quickly ducked under a punch from his angered sensei. You idiot. If you're going to waste time, don't do it by creating useless jutsu. Shouted Iruka, a tick mark appearing on his temple. Oh yeah? Argued Naruto, if it's so useless, then how did you get that nosebleed? That looks more like an effective distraction technique to me. Everyone blinked. Since when did Naruto put up an adequate argument? For that matter, when did he use words like effective? Naruto, still chuckling to himself, turned to go back to his seat. His laughter was stopped, however, by the sight of Sakura's furious expression. Or, to be accurate, the shining aura of death surrounding her. Well, there go my seating arrangements. He thought with slight dismay. There was no way he'd be able to sit next to Sakura-chan now. She'd pummel him for sure. He'd have to find somewhere else to sit, but where? Looking around, he saw that nearly all of the other empty seats were right in the middle of other danger zones, angry fangirls. Eventually, he noticed one area that seemed safe. It was all the way at the back of the room, next to a girl with dark blue hair. What was her name? Oh well, he could just ask her seeing as she didn't seem to want to hurt him, judging by her lack of a death glare. He quickly made his way over there and asked her, is it alright if I sit here? She nodded, blushing furiously, and he sat down. She fidgeted in her seat nervously as he stared at her face heating up under his gaze. Meanwhile, Iruka-sensei was calling other students down to perform the henge. Pretty nice of you, Naruto blurted. The silence had been getting to him and he had decided to try and start a conversation. Letting me sit here, I mean. Anyone else probably would have tried to beat on me, especially because of that jutsu I just used. Now he was just babbling. And the silence was made even more awkward. Meanwhile, in an alternate dimension. There was a man sitting at a desk. The desk was located at the back of a darkened library. The man was dressed in all gray. Bathrobe and slippers. The desk he was sitting at carried only two things. A crystal ball and an open paperback book. Both of his hands were affixed to the ball, his gray eyes distant. As he sat transfixed, the book beside was open to an unfinished page. As the minutes dragged by, the words on the page were writing themselves. When the words reached the end of the page, it flipped over and began writing on the other side. After an immense amount of time which could have been days, the gray man wrenched his hands from the ball and leaned back in his chair, pulling out a pair of black glasses, not sunglasses, just glasses with black frames. After staring at the ceiling for a few minutes he lowered his head with a sigh. Smooth, Naruto, real smooth. He grunted. He turned his head to gaze down the pathway between towering bookshelves wistfully, wishing he could just stroll among them and read their contents. But, he couldn't. Not yet. First he had to record this damned story. Turning resignedly back to his desk, he saw, to his horror, that the book was now full of his own thoughts, rather than the monologue he had been recording. No. Stop. Stop, you stupid piece of literature. He cried. But it was no good. The story had been diluted by a few paragraphs of meaningless narration. Oh, shut up you smug piece of shit. He snarled. His expression changed to horror. Oh crap, it just wrote that, didn't it? He chanced to look down at its rapidly filling pages, where a single word had been added. A word that he had not put there. Yes. Vedule. The man quickly whipped off his glasses and swept his hands back. Every time Alex goes out on one of his little outings, it makes my job a living hell. He whined inwardly. Stupid Chronicles getting smart with me. He brought his hands forward, slapping them on the sides of the crystal ball. As his eyes again grew vacant, several lines of purple symbols crawled their way across his scalp, enhancing his mind to help him discern the multitude of images he was seeing. Meanwhile, back at the plot, more specifically, Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto slurped at his ramen, mulling over the events of the day. After his feeble attempts at starting a conversation, the dark-haired girl had given an even feebler attempt to continue it, stuttering so badly he could barely understand and blushing so deeply it made a tomato look pale in comparison. Flashback. Before he had time to ask her name, Haruka-sensei called, "Hinata Hyuga. Come show your henge, please." Hinata squeaked and ran to the front of the class, where she performed a rather realistic henge into a copy of Haruka-sensei. After dismissing her technique, she returned awkwardly to her seat. When she sat down, she did so on the very edge of her seat, head down, avoiding his gaze. As if fearing his criticism of her jutsu. "That was very good," offered Naruto, glancing at her with slight concern. Thank you, B, but it wasn't all that good," she murmured sadly, again turning slightly red. "Yeah, it was," argued Naruto, "at least," he muttered to himself, "it was better than mine." Hinata looked up, shocked. "Why yours wasn't bad either?" she said timidly. It was she blushed even darker, very realistic, she whispered embarrassedly. "Oh?" Naruto leaned in, a perverted grin on his face and a strange gleam in his eye. For a moment, Hinata thought she saw someone else in his eyes, but then it was gone. "I didn't know you were into that sort of thing, Hinata-chan." This was not really saying much, seeing as he didn't actually know her that well. But it was enough. The normally pale, blue-haired girl turned a deep crimson and fainted, uttering a small squeak and flopping over on the bench. Naruto blinked. "Huh?" he thought, leaning over her limp body. "Why did I say that? That's not something I'd normally say. And why did she gag?" While he had been leaning over her, Hinata had, in her unconscious state, reached up with her slim pale arms and hugged him tightly, yanking him to her. Due to the initial positions of their bodies, Naruto ended up getting his face pressed into her chest, which, he quickly learned, was a lot more developed than those of the other girls in the class. Haruka-sensei, who was still calling up students to demonstrate the henge, took no notice. Naruto squirmed vainly against the Hyuga heiress's iron grip, but, due to slowly being suffocated by the girl's breasts, was unable to make a sound. His thoughts, on the other hand, were clamoring loudly. HLMPH. Help. I'm being smothered. Hell wait, why am I shouting in my head? Nobody can hear me. But if I don't do something, I'll die. That might not be so bad. Wait, who said that? Oh yeah, me. Who else would it be? But I do have a point. Death by suffocation via boobs isn't that bad of a way to go. Hey, wait minute. If I die, how will I become Hokage? How will I get the villagers to respect me? How will I eat at Ichiraku's if I'm dead? How will? Before he could think his next question, however, the blonde's brain informed him that he was low on air by shutting down, leaving him to descend into the suspiciously squishy darkness. In her sleep, Hinata groaned and rolled over, off the bench and onto the floor, the resultant thud muffled by her thick jacket. To their credit, neither of them woke up. Then flashback, resume at present. Naruto hunched over the remains over his ramen so the others wouldn't see him blushing. Haruka glanced over at Naruto, slightly worried after today's incident. After he had finished testing the other students, Haruka had noticed that Naruto and Hinata seemed to have vacated their seats. As the other students had gotten to chatting amongst themselves, he'd made his way to the back of the room. When he'd reached the bench, he discovered, to his annoyance and amusement, that both of his missing students were sleeping on the floor in each other's arms. Or rather, Hinata gripping Naruto like a teddy bear, while Naruto used Hinata's chest as a pillow. As discreetly as he could, given the circumstances, Haruka had gently prodded the Hyuga girl awake. After calming down the distraught girl and getting her back into her seat, he'd hefted Naruto onto the bench next to her, the boy still being unconscious. Walking back to his own desk at the front, Haruka had failed to see Hinata tug Naruto's head onto her lap. At an undisclosed library-like location, a gray-haired, bespectacled man snickered to himself. "But I saw," he cackled madly, "like I always do." "Shut up, old man," came a female voice from among the bookshelves. "No one wants to hear your senility." The man slumped over, crying anime tears. "Fucking bitch," he growled, "no respect for her elders. I think I know how Haruka feels in that classroom." Anyway, back at Ichiraku's, Haruka suddenly sneezed, whacking his head on the counter. "OW. You alright, Haruka-sensei?" asked Naruto, momentarily distracted from his embarrassment. "He must be getting a cold," grunted Haruka, rubbing his sore forehead. "You should get going if you're done, Naruto," Haruka said suddenly. "The genin exam is tomorrow and you should probably practice your bunshin." Right," Naruto said, slurping up the rest of the broth in his bowl. He hopped off his stool and raced off for the training ground. As he ran there, he failed to notice a pair of pale lavender eyes following him. Nor did he notice the owner of them, who darted between nearby trees and poles in order not to be seen by her crush. At nearby training ground, several hours later. Naruto stood in a large isolated clearing, panting slightly from chakra exertion. It was no good, he thought. No matter how much he tried to focus, he couldn't use a small enough amount of chakra to produce a bunshin. It would take more time than he had to accomplish the jutsu. While his clones no longer looked trampled, they still looked ready to keel over at any moment. Guess I'll just have to see how I do tomorrow. He thought dismally. As he turned to walk away, he froze. He'd seen something behind one of the trees at the edge of the clearing. He squinted into the dark, trying to find it. For a brief moment, he thought he'd seen a pair of eyes shining in the moonlight. He stared, eyes straining for anything odd. As he did so, without realizing it, he began channeling chakra to set eyes, sharpening his vision. He blinked for a moment, it had been too dark to see anything, but now he could clearly discern the shapes in front of him. It was that girl from before, Hinata. From the looks of things, she'd been spying on him for a while. Why hadn't she come out and talked to him? He would have appreciated the company, and she might have been able to help him, this last part being the practical side of Naruto's brain. Frowning to himself, Naruto thought back to his encounter with her during class. Well, she was stuttering a lot and she seemed kinda down on herself. I guess she's really shy. But still, why didn't she at least say hi? Gah, screw it, I'm too tired to think right now. I'll ask her tomorrow. Hinata stood, frozen, behind her tree. When Naruto had stopped, she had quietly panicked and tried to squeeze more of herself behind the tree trunk, hoping she hadn't been seen. She might die of embarrassment if someone discovered that she had taken to spying on Naruto. Also, if someone saw her, they might tell Naruto-kun. Then he might think she was some creepy stalker, even though she was, at least the stalker part, and he wouldn't want to be her friend. But then again, maybe he hadn't seen her Hinata emerge from this panic attack to notice that Naruto was turning away. She quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Then Naruto turned back in her direction, and she choked on her sigh. I saw you. We'll talk tomorrow. Was all he said. With that, he turned again and walked out of the clearing, leaving Hinata to have another panic attack. Naruto strolled the streets, hoping to get home so he could get some sleep. As he turned the corner, though, a strange blankness began to fill his head. He quickly ran to the nearest wall so he could sit down before the vision robbed him of his motor skills. A map appeared in his head, a highly detailed map showing the streets nearby, plus a few other details. Such as the fact that at 3 different locations, all of which intercepting the path he meant to take, was a small mob, each poised to jump him once he crossed their line of sight. As the vision faded, Naruto groaned, now in a thoroughly bad mood. Fucking not only am I exhausted, now I have deal with these assholes. RRRRGH, fine. I'll just hand and walk past them, but Naruto finished in a low growl, if I end up having to deal with any bullshit, heads will roll. And not mine, either. Bringing his hands up to form the hand seals, he barked, Henge. After the usual blast of smoke, Naruto was replaced by a tall purple-haired woman wearing a fishnet shirt and a trench coat that did not do a good job in hiding her large assets. Naruto had seen this woman walking about the village, so there wasn't any fear of the villagers becoming suspicious of a person they had never seen before. Also, he had noticed that wherever that particular woman went, people tended to steer out of her way, as if fearing for their health. This would mean that, when the villagers tried to stop him or her, they would not look too closely out of fear of being castrated. Soon, the hinged boy reached the spot where the first mob was situated. AHA. Gotcha now, demon brat. Cried a man at the head of the swarm as they charged, only to trip over a stray rock and face plant rather spectacularly into her generous cleavage. Spluttering, the man righted himself and got a look at the woman's face, which looked murderous. Mitarashi-san. He gulped, seeing his life flashing before his eyes. He quickly scowled and said sharply, you haven't seen the Kyuubi brat around, have you? He was supposed to have come this way and we were going to teach him a lesson. The irritated woman raised an eyebrow. You mean the Uzumaki kid? No, I haven't seen him. Though, if I did, I'm not sure I would tell you. Although it was Naruto speaking, it was the woman's, Mitarashi-san's, voice that left his mouth. He wasn't sure what was causing this, but at the moment he did not care. He continued on his way, leaving several relieved, terrified civilians. The youth did not have any more encounters with the other idiots. Maybe the first group had told the others that the Kyuubi brat, whatever that meant, wouldn't be showing up or something. This was good, because his nerves were already shredded to the breaking point. The next fool to cross his path would have been left with a hole where their heart should be. However, this did not happen, and he reached his apartment with his last nerve frayed but intact. Too tired to do anything else, he fell onto his bed, fully clothed, and fell asleep instantly. Such a strange dream was drifting in an empty, dimly lit room, the back wall of which was dominated by an enormous, but equally empty, cage. In the middle of the room, there was a wooden chair. There was nothing special about it, it was just a chair. But perched on the back was a large crow, or was it a raven? Nearby, sitting on the floor, was an orange fox with 9 tails. Something about it seemed familiar to Naruto, but he couldn't remember why. Suddenly, the crow raven looked up and saw him, whereupon it threw its wings up in shock. "What the hell are you doing here?" it asked in a surprisingly human-sounding voice. "You're not supposed to show up here for another day or so. You're too early." It flicked the tips of its wings at him. "Shoo. Shoo. Go back to sleep." The fox reached up one of its tails and knocked the unfortunate avian off its perch. "Don't be rude," it snapped in a distinctly female voice. "It's as much his place as it is ours. What are you doing trying to kick him out?" The bird sighed. "My problem isn't his being here, Chan." It said, "My problem is that he's here too soon." The fox sniffed. "Whatever. Go do your thing," she said in an uncaring tone, lying down on the stone floor. As the black bird smoldered in silent fury, Naruto blinked in confusion. When the bird had spoken what was presumably Fox's name, he'd been unable to hear it, as if something was scrambling the sounds in order for him to not understand it. What was going on? The bird finally puffed itself up in apparent anger. "Alright." He, for it was definitely a male, shouted, "You may ask one question, then you must go." Naruto, suddenly remembering that he could speak, blurted out, "What kind of bird are you?" Said feathered creature tilted its head at him. "A bird, huh? That's what I look like to you?" "Yeah. A big black one. I'm a crow. Now you must go." "Hey, that rhymes." The room began to dissolve around Naruto at these words. Suddenly, the crow's voice called out, "One last thing. Be nice to her, she means well and wants to help you." As everything faded to black, Naruto had one last thought, though he could not voice it. What does he mean? Who is she? That mysterious library. The gray man snapped his book shut before getting out of his chair to go get some sleep himself. "I see the years have not diminished your ability to be enigmatic, Alex," he mumbled to himself. "And a crow? Well, you always were obsessed with the things. It seems that many things are riding on Tomer Woe." The old man, not having been looking where he was going, had stepped on a candy wrapper that someone must have left on the floor and slipped. He hit said floor with a loud wham and a small crunch as his back gave out. "Uncle? Are you alright?" A girl with bright blue hair came running from behind a nearby bookshelf, looking worried. "Does it look like I'm alright, Blair?" he hissed, his shark-like teeth gritted with pain. "I'm fucking paralyzed. I can't get up." Alright, let me help you up," she said reassuringly. She hoisted the man into a sitting position and set about healing his injured spine. "Ah, a water girl who does healing. Isn't that so cliché, Blair?" "Yes, but I like being cliché. And it's helping you stand. Here you go." She pulled him to his feet. "Thanks. When I get my hands on that bitch." "You're sure she left that there? It could have been one of the others." "She was the only one here." Blair rolled her eyes. It seemed her surrogate uncle would not be shaken in his conviction of her bitchy cousin. "Ah, well. Best not to argue." Chapter 4. Storia Spellwright shuffled along the passages of the library, simultaneously anticipating and dreading the day's work. He felt anticipation because he knew Alex was about to take a direct hand in Naruto's life, making things more interesting for him. He felt dread because, as always, he was going to be stuck behind that damn crystal, in danger of going insane from sensory overload from the sheer amount of images. Reaching his desk, he placed his hands on the original crystal ball and extended his mind's eye, searching for the subject of his chronicle, one Naruto Uzumaki. Eventually, Storia found him, lying soundly asleep in his bed. Storia's eye twitched. "Like hell I'm gonna wait for you to get up," he thought angrily. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Naruto." Naruto verse. Naruto Uzumaki sat up in bed with a violent sneeze. He looked around, slightly dazed and confused, before his eye landed on his alarm clock. "What the hell?" he groaned. "It's too early for me to wake up." Naruto fell back, hoping to fall asleep. However, unfortunately for him, he ended up bashing his head on the headboard. Arg. Fuck. After several more minutes of swearing in pain, Naruto decided it might be a good idea to get ready for the academy early for once. After stumbling around, trying to find his clothes, he remembered the dream he'd had the previous night. Seeing as he didn't really have anything to do, he went over the details of the dream. Normally, he'd just disregard it as just that, a dream, but something about it had seemed too real to be any such thing. Besides which, there had definitely been some things that hadn't made sense to him. He eventually came up with some questions. 1. What the hell was up with the room? Why was the cage empty too? Why had there been a crow and a fox? Why did they talk? 3. The chair. It had seemed too small, in contrast to the immensity of the room. Why was it there? Why weren't there any other chairs? 4. What was it that the crow had said? "You're not supposed to be here yet." That implied that he had been expecting Naruto, but not at the time. How could that be, since they'd never met? 5. Why had he not heard the fox's name? 6. Why was it that, until the crow had told him to ask a question, he had not said anything? Soon, however, all these random questions were blocked out by an even more important one. Who the hell was she? Taking a break from his musings, Naruto glanced at his alarm clock. Oh shit. I'm gonna be late. Yanking on his sandals, he raced out the door. On the way there, he resumed his contemplations of his question. She means well and wants to help you. That was what the crow had said. Well, what the hell did that mean? Naruto turned his mind to all of the she-s apostrophe that he knew. Was it Sakura? She means well and wants to help you. Naruto grimaced. With the beatings she was always giving him, it was a safe bet that helping him was pretty far from her mind. Why did he have a crush on her again? Perhaps it might be a good idea to switch his affections. Preferably, to someone who wouldn't try to give him a concussion every time he opened his mouth. Moving on. Naruto thought about his past experiences with his fellow blonde. While she hadn't been as physical at showing her displeasure as Sakura, she was certainly as if not more bossy, always yelling at everyone within earshot and competing with Sakura for the position of #1 Sasuke fangirl. If he was going to start being nice to anyone, it would not be to a fangirl. What about Am? She seemed more likely, she was one of the few people who cared about him. But the crow had told him to be nice to her, and he already was. So if that wasn't it, then who was it? By this time, Naruto had reached the academy, having ignored the glares that the villagers had been throwing his way the entire time. Entering the classroom, Naruto was astonished to find that he was early. He must have left earlier than I thought. He shrugged to himself. Ah, well. That just means I can have time to myself. Grinning, he turned to sit at his usual seat next to where Sasuke would usually sit and then stopped. Wait. Why do I even want to sit next to that broody emo team? Oh yeah, because it means that Sakura will try to sit next to me. Well, screw that, I'm sitting somewhere else. Again, he turned and was surprised to see Hinata sitting huddled in the corner at the back. Maybe I could ask her about last night. He thought. Figuring she hadn't seen him, Naruto crept quietly over to her. As he neared her, he saw her shaking slightly, so he leaned to see what was wrong. He was shocked to hear her quietly sobbing. Hinata was terrified. Ever since Naruto had said he had seen her, she'd been unable to sleep, spiraling into the depths of despair. She knew that Naruto would be angry with her for spying and that he'd tell her to stay away from him, and then her hopes of a future with him would be ruined and she'd be left all alone with a family that thought she was weak, with no way out. At this, Hinata began to cry, the sheer horror of living such a life being too much for her already fragile emotional state. Hinata stiffened as a finger tapped her on the shoulder. Hinata? Are you okay? Asked a concerned voice. She looked up slowly and Naruto was shocked to see her tear-stained face. Hinata. What's wrong, Hinata? He asked, horrified. And then Naruto-kun. Said Hinata in a hoarse whisper before her tears started to flow even faster. I'm sorry. She wailed. I know I shouldn't have spied on why you like that, but I wanted to see you do well. But I blew it and now you think I'm some sort of stalker. As if a failure like me could have Hinata curled tightly into a ball and gave a high-pitched whine of misery. Naruto stared, at a loss for words. This wasn't the way he'd meant things to turn out at all. When he'd said I saw you. It was just as a comment, a bit of a joke to surprise her. But she seemed to have taken it quite badly and now he didn't know what to do. Just standing there seemed to just make things worse. Then he remembered. Be nice to her, she means well and wants to help you. I wanted to see you do well. Was this what the bird had meant? Either way, he needed to do something. It wasn't right that she should cry because of him. Looking at her, Naruto couldn't help but feel an ache in his chest at the sight of her sadness. Quietly, he sat down next to her and put his hand on her quivering shoulder. Hinata-chan. He said gently, please stop crying. It's alright, I don't hate you. You don't have to be sad, okay? Eventually, Hinata uncurled slightly and looked sideways at him, her eyes red and puffy from crying. You don't hate me? She asked, a note of hope clearly audible in her voice. Of course not. Said Naruto, still trying to cheer her up. I mean, it is a bit weird that you spied on me. Hinata's face fell. But it's not a bad thing. Said Naruto quickly, I mean, of all the people in this class you could have watched, you chose me to spy on. Naruto looked away, slightly embarrassed. To me, that's like you're saying you think highly of me. Hinata looked up, eyes wide. Naruto-kun thought she thought highly of him. Well, she did, but the point was he was thinking on the same wavelength as her. There was hope yet. She smiled at him, blushing again. Naruto was inwardly relieved. It seemed his words were truer than he thought, if the lack of tears was an indication. He cleared his throat awkwardly, feeling that it was time for a change of subject. No matter how cute she looked like that. So, how do you think you'll do in the exam? He asked a bit lamely. Hinata frowned slightly, thinking. I think I'll be able to pass. She said finally, what about you? It seemed like you were having trouble last night. After a moment of trying hard not to laugh at the hidden double meaning in her words, Naruto replied, with a straight face, well after that practice session, my chances are now around maybe, rather than no way as in, maybe I'll pass or maybe I'll fail. He looked down at his hands, I've got no way of finding out, so all I can do is just go for it. He looked up to see her face surprisingly close to his. I know you will, Naruto-kun. Said Hinata fiercely, her stutter absent, I believe in you. You have to pass. In the silence that followed, he just sat in his seat, stunned. No one had ever said such a thing to him, not even Hokage. A warm feeling spread through him as he gazed at the blushing, dark-haired girl next to him. At that moment he decided, I'm going to be her friend. She'd liked him enough to spy on him and had encouraged him, rather than laughing, like all the others. Also, she'd had the same look as him before. The face of someone who was surrounded by hatred. Someone who had no friends to help her. Well, if she needs a friend, then I'll help her. He thought determinedly. After Hinata had spoken, Naruto-kun had stared at her, looking shocked. For a moment, she was worried she had somehow said the wrong thing. Then she squeaked as Naruto threw his arms around her and gave her a hug. She stiffened, forgetting to breathe for a moment. Thank you, Hinata. Although his voice was soft, Hinata still heard it. At his words, a feeling of satisfaction swelled in her, making her lightheaded. You're a good friend. This, however, proved too much for the small Hyuga. And Naruto-kun. She gasped out, her vision going dark. Naruto, with his arms still around the girl, sweat dropped as he felt her body go limp. She'd fainted again, it seemed. Gently, not wanting to wake her up, he maneuvered her into an upright position in her seat, not quite wanting to repeat the experience of the previous day. Looking around, he was astonished to see that, over the course of their talk, other students had arrived early in anticipation of the Genin exam. Fortunately, none of them seemed to have noticed the two of them for some reason. Naruto had no idea why no one had seen or heard them, but he was glad. If he had discovered an eavesdropper, he probably would have clobbered him for ruining the mood. At trans-dimensional library. Storia looked around quickly, checking that Naruto was not in the immediate vicinity. Then he remembered that Naruto was in a different world altogether and stuck his tongue at his crystal ball. "Whatcha doin', uncle?" asked a voice at his shoulder. Storia yelped and whipped around, clutching his heart in shock. Standing there, grinning, was one of his so-called nieces, Blair Souse. Blair. He gasped, what the hell, you nearly gave me a heart attack. What are you doing here anyway? I'm your assistant now. Said the blue-haired girl proudly, Mason sent me to catalog all your books and stuff. So, what were you doing? She asked, leaning in so she could whisper in the gray-haired man's ear. Come on, uncle, you can tell me. You've been coming here a lot lately, haven't you? You've been doing more of that narrator stuff. She stood back up, waiting for him to answer. I'm going to smack that obsessive-compulsive musclehead the next time I see him. Storia scowled up at the girl's expectant face. From his angle, this was rather difficult as most of her face was obscured by her bust, also, the fact that his eyesight was rather poor didn't really help matters. First of all, yes, I have been narrating. He began, grudgingly, as what he really wanted was to get back to his chronicle before it got away from him. Secondly, stop calling me uncle, we're not related, so it's kinda weird. But I like calling you uncle. Blair whined, pouting in a way that was meant to be endearing, besides, we're all still family here. And in our family, you're the grumpy yet dashingly handsome uncle. Storia raised an eyebrow. Dashingly handsome. He said sarcastically, my dear Souse, you've been reading too many bad romance novels. Well, I am not that old. Blair stifled a giggle. Shut up, I'm nowhere near dashingly handsome, ugh, I need to stop saying that. It's leaving a bad taste in my mouth. Now be off with you. I need to get back to work and you've got cataloging to do. Fine. Blair pouted again, then turned away. Before she got too far, though, she turned back, a serious expression on her face. Hey, uncle. Will you ever send me to the world where Uncle Alex is? The narrator tilted his head to the side, thinking. Perhaps. He said, finally, maybe if you to take some of the others, I might. We'll see. The blue-haired girl smiled before turning and running off along the bookcases, hoping to find some of the more explicit ones. Don't leave stains. Storia called, eliciting a distant squawk of indignation from his assistant. Laughing, he turned back to the book and the ball, silly Blair, the narrator always knows what you're thinking. His expression then grew tired. Now, where were we, Naruto? Finally, back in the Naruto verse. Naruto shivered. For a moment, it felt as if he were being watched by some otherworldly force. Then the feeling passed and he brushed it off as nerves about the exam. After all the students and senseis had arrived and Iruka-sensei had given the usual speech about becoming shinobi and the rest of that crap, he'd begun calling them up, one by one, to prove that they were worthy of the Hittite. Some of them came back wearing the village symbol proudly, while others came back angry or upset because they had failed. When Hinata's name was called, she was nervous. What if she failed? She'd have to repeat a year and wouldn't be able to see Naruto or end up on the same team as him. But fortunately, her fears were disproven and she passed easily. Tying the hit-I-8 around her neck, she strode back to her seat, smiling widely. Though her smile was for a different reason than her success. Naruto had said they were friends. It wasn't quite what she wanted, but it was certainly a good start. He greeted her with a smile of his own, then moved over to make room for her on the bench. They spent the next hour or so in silence as Iruka-sensei called up other genin candidates. Unbeknownst to the pair, the other students had finally noticed that the two were together and a murmur had risen among them. Some, like Ino Yamanaka, were delightedly wondering when the two had gotten so close. Kiba Inyazuka, on the other hand, was not delighted. On the contrary, he was feeling rather resentful. How dare the dope sit next to his Hinata-chan like that? As quietly as he could, without alerting any of the teachers, Kiba slid out of his seat and crept over to Naruto and Hinata's row. Hinata glanced to the side and noticed a brown-haired figure sneaking towards them and felt a bit of dread. She did not like Kiba. He was always proclaiming that he was the alpha and that she must submit as his mate. Seeing as she was not exactly naive and he was a big pervert, it was rather easy for her to guess what he meant by submit. Noticing Hinata's discomfort, Naruto glanced in the same direction. "Oi, Kiba, what are you doing down there?" he asked. Kiba, who had been crouching so his head was lower than the desk, popped up in front of Naruto, scowling. "You're sitting next to Hinata," he growled. Naruto merely looked at him from under half-closed eyelids. "Yeah, I am. Is that all?" "No, it's not," said Kiba, baring his teeth in anger. "Stay away from her. She's mine." "Oh really?" asked the blonde, eyes narrowing. "And she agreed to this, I'm guessing." He turned to Hinata, who was quietly seething at the idea of being Kiba's "Hey, Hinata, Kiba's saying that you belong to him like some sort of property or something. What's your opinion on this?" Hinata gave Kiba a glare that Hyugas were known for. "There is no way in hell I would belong to him," she snapped, surprising both boys with her aggressiveness. The effect was slightly broken as she blushed again. "If I belonged to anyone, it would be you, Naruto-kun." Smiling, Naruto turned back to Kiba. "There's your answer. Now go away." He leaned back, satisfied. "I'm not going anywhere. I am the alpha here and you must do as." Naruto shot to his feet, having finally lost his patience with the overbearing mutt. Kiba stepped back, suddenly afraid of the surprisingly strong chi radiating from the dope. Also, if he had been paying attention, he would have noticed the whiskered boy's left eye. In his anger, it had begun darkening to brown and looked even more fierce. Before Naruto could tell Kiba what he could do with his attitude, Iruka finally looked up and noticed Kiba was out of his seat. "Kiba," he barked, "get back to your seat. Stop provoking Naruto." "You heard him, dog boy," said Naruto. Though Iruka's words had taken away most of his anger, enough to return his eye to normal, though he did not know it, he was still pissed at the Inyazuka. "Get going." Angry, humiliated, but still frightened, Kiba stumped back to his desk. "Some help you were." He snapped at Akamaru, who had not left the bench to help him. The puppy just tilted his head at his human in confusion. A few more students got tested, with Sakura Haruno, Shikamaru Nara and Sasuke Uchiha passing. Then, finally, it was Naruto's turn. "Naruto Uzumaki," called Iruka. Naruto stretched and stood up. Good luck, Naruto-kun." Hinata murmured as he left, earning a nod to show he'd heard. Naruto reached the front of the room, where Iruka was waiting with Mizuki. "Alright Naruto, you know the drill, just make 2 bunshin and you pass." Although he could not say anything, Iruka hoped very much that Naruto would pass. He knew how much the boy wanted to become a ninja. After all, becoming a shinobi would be his first step toward becoming Hokage, as was his dream. Unfortunately, this was his last chance. If he failed now, he'd be kicked out of the academy altogether. Naruto crouched slightly, bringing his hands up to perform the 3 seals for the bunshin. He concentrated on his chakra, willing it produced the right amount to work with. Bunshin no jutsu. There was the usual blast of smoke, obscuring Naruto from view. When it cleared, Naruto slowly glanced to the side, anticipating the sight of yet another dead replica. What he saw instead was a near-perfect copy of him. It stood rather unsteadily, but it was most certainly not dead. "Yes. Finally, I did it." He cheered. Then he saw the saddened look on Iruka's face. "What's wrong, sensei? Didn't I pass?" Iruka simply pointed and Naruto looked to his other side, where he immediately saw the problem. Damn it. Well, the other clone looked alright, it only did so from the waist down. Anything above that was absent, leaving a pair of orange-clad legs without a head to move them. Iruka sighed. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't pass you with something like this." "Ah, come on," said Mizuki sympathetically, "he made 1.5, that ought to be good enough." But Iruka just shook his head. Naruto hung his head, disappointed. He'd failed again. "Oh, when I was so close too," he groaned. Then he brightened slightly, "Well, that just means I'll get it next year." "You can't," said Iruka quietly, his head down. Naruto looked up. "Whatcha say?" he asked. Iruka looked at Naruto, and the boy saw that his teacher looked unusually serious. "You've taken this exam 3 times, Naruto, and all 3 times you have failed. There are no more chances. I'm sorry." "So what?" asked Naruto, not really thinking. "That just means," he stopped abruptly, the blood draining from his face as his teacher's words sunk in, as well as his own. "I can't become a ninja." He breathed. If he couldn't become a ninja, his dream of Hokage was useless. They'd never make a civilian Hokage. Not only that, but since the majority of the village despised him, being a ninja would have been the only career open to him. Without that, he'd never get enough money to support himself, and his life would be pretty much over. As he realized how much of his life depended on him being a ninja, Naruto could feel his whole world crashing down around him. He turned and walked back up the aisle. As he passed by, some of the students looked up, astonished by the dead look on his face. Ino, being the only person who had yet to go, felt nervous. What did Iruka-sensei said to make Naruto look like that? Would it affect her? When Naruto reached his seat at the back, he sat down mechanically next to Hinata, still staring straight ahead. "Then Naruto-kun?" asked Hinata nervously. "What's wrong? Did you fail?" Naruto looked at her, eyes wide. "Yeah," he whispered, "I failed." And Hinata was horrified to see tears start streaming down her new friend's face. "I failed and I can't try again. There's nothing left. No hope." He then buried his face in his hands, now crying in earnest. Hinata desperately wanted to do something, but what? Remembering what he had done for her earlier, she put her arms around him and hugged him to her as he sobbed. She wanted to tell him that everything was alright. However, she had seen him endure torments from bullies and hateful looks from the adults of the village, all the time never shedding a tear. If whatever had happened was bad enough to make him cry like this, obviously, everything was as far from alright as it could be. So she just gripped him tighter, feeling more useless than her family could ever make her feel. Inside Naruto's mindscape soar. Alex Mercer looked up from where he sat in his chair, peering down the tunnel that led to the seal chamber, from which a deep rumbling was emerging. "Oi, Kina-chan, get over here," he called, not taking his brown eyes off of the dark hall. A teenaged red-haired girl with fox ears, a tail, and a kimono came running over, having heard the undertone of worry in her companion's voice. "What is it?" she asked. "Well, I'm not really sure, but I think Naruto is going through a huge amount of emotional stress." Still not taking his eyes off the source of the rumble, Alex replied in as casual a tone as he could. The girl glanced at him, deadpanning at his calmness. "How bad, would you say?" Alex took a moment to answer. "Well, seeing as it has never been like this before, I'd say it's pretty bad." Hina frowned. "Is there anything we can do?" For Naruto, "No. You, however, should hold on to me." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Why?" The rumbling had, by this time, grown to a roar. Well, Alex finally tilted his head towards his fellow prisoner, a look of slight panic on his face. "I'd say we're both about to become very wet." Iridied stared at him for a moment, confused. Then, her eyes widening, she clamped onto Alex's arm. And not a moment too soon. The torrent of water, fueled by Naruto's despair, surged from the darkness of the tunnel, quickly flooding the chamber. Kina was blown off her feet, with only her grip on Alex's sleeve, preventing her from flying off into the depths of the cage behind them. Alex, on the other hand, sitting in his wooden chair, refused to budge. He grinned over his shoulder at the girl clinging to him, having calmed down somewhat. "Can I calm or what?" he asked, his ability to make sound seemingly unaffected by the horizontal waterfall flowing around him. The fox girl just gave him a look that was a cross between a glare and pure terror, her ears pressed flat to her head. Poor thing. He thought guiltily, "Sorry, but there's nothing I can do here. We'll just have to ride this out." Kina gave a small whimper, looking as though she might cry. Outer verse, aka Naruto's world, later. Naruto sat on a swing outside the academy, having no idea what to do with himself. Hinata had already been reluctantly taken home by one of her family members. Whoever it was had glared Naruto accusatorily, as if it was his fault the guy had had to take her home. Who knows, maybe it was. He watched, but did not really see, other kids being picked up by their parents. However, he did hear some of the comments made about himself. "That's him, they say he failed, and that he's been kicked out of the academy, well, good riddance." As if they would make him a ninja. After all, he is the DSHH, remember the law. Naruto heard these mutterings and, curious, turned the last one over in his head. "Deed what? Demon?" He got no further in these thoughts, however, as someone behind him said Naruto. The blonde boy turned and saw Mizuki standing next to him. "Oh. It's you, Mizuki-sensei," he said gloomily. Seeing his former teacher reminded him of his failure and again brought to mind the ruins of his life. "You know, you shouldn't blame Haruka," began Mizuki. "I don't blame him," Naruto interrupted dully, "I'm the one who failed. It's my own fault I can never," he broke off, not trusting himself to say the cursed words. "Well," Mizuki said, weighing his words carefully, "what if I told you that there was a secret test? And that, if you passed, you would be made a ninja for sure." Naruto was on his feet in an instant. "I'd say you had to be the log itself come to save me, sensei," he said, eyes shining. In his mind, the crumbled ruins began to rebuild themselves. The silver-haired man chuckled, "All right then, here's what you have to do." A few minutes later, an orange and blonde blur streaked off, already creating a plan. A plan that would enable him to steal the forbidden scroll of seals. Mizuki watched him go with a smile. Then that smile became a cruel smirk. "Good luck," he said mockingly. Later, at the Hokage Tower. Naruto stood, knees bent and back to the wall, on a bit of overhanging roof. Directly above his head was the window of the Sandame's office. It was time to begin his plan. Reaching up, he knocked on the window, then quickly ducked down, his orange clothes blending surprisingly well with the tiles of the roof. A second later, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the elderly Sandame Hokage, opened his window and looked out. Confused, he scratched his goatee before turning back into the room, away from the window. Instantly, Naruto sprang through the open window before the Hokage could close it again, rolling into a crouch on the rug. "Naruto? What are you doing here?" asked the old man in surprise. "Sorry Jiji," said Naruto, who raised his hands, "but I have to take this chance. Warwick no jutsu. Insert smoke cloud HEREN. Seriously, it gets tiring to write about all the damn clouds of percent and $ing smoke." Sarutobi simply stared. Before him stood a curvy pigtailed young blonde woman, completely naked except for some wisps of leftover smoke. She hugged herself, squeezing her generous breasts together in the process. "Don't you want me to do well, Hokage-sama?" she asked plaintively. For another moment, the old man just stared, stunned at this display. Then, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the man who was known as the Professor and God of Shinobi, hit the ceiling, then the ground, knocked out by a massive nosebleed. Naruto quickly cancelled the henge. "Huh," he said to himself, "that worked better than it should have. Oh well, part 1 accomplished." He searched the office, eventually finding the scroll in a compartment hidden behind the portrait of the Yondaime. Slinging the massive scroll over his shoulder, Naruto leaped out the still open window. Once outside, he dashed off in the direction of the forest. He had a technique to learn. Meanwhile, at Iruka's apartment. Iruka lay on his bed, wondering what to do. Every time he saw his reflection, he saw Naruto, wide and horrified, looking back at him. He tried to remember what the boy was who had killed his parents. But again, the boy's look of horror came to his mind's eye. No monster could look like that, he thought. He was interrupted by a frantic knocking on his door. "Iruka. Are you in there? Open up." It was Mizuki. What did he want? He opened the door to see his fellow teacher looking panicked. "Iruka, it's Naruto. He's taken the forbidden scroll of sealing." What? Mizuki nodded, "Yeah, I was going to go alert some of the Jonin. You go one way and I'll go the other." And he dashed off. Iruka stood there for a moment, trying to digest Mizuki's words. Then, quickly, he ran off to the forest. He knew where the boy would be. He always went there when he wanted to train alone. Another location in the forest. Naruto stopped at his usual clearing, next to an empty shack. Lowering the scroll, he sat down and unrolled it. "Alright, Mizuki-sensei said that I need to learn one of the techniques in here. Right then, what's the first one? Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Well, that figures." He started reading. The Kage Bunshin is a technique that, when used, can create multiple solid copies of the user. Unlike other Bunshin jutsu, however, the technique does not require any elemental medium, water, mud, etc., as the clones are created purely from the user's chakra. Warning. Since the technique divides the user's chakra, it is possible to die from overuse of this technique. Also, while the clones have the same strength as their creator, they can still be dispelled with a single hit. Any clones made from this technique will display their own intelligence, as well as retaining any memories that the original had until creating them. Inversely, any memories gained by the clone after creation will be transferred back to the original upon dispersal of the clone. This makes the jutsu useful for reconnaissance purposes. Naruto blinked. Hyuhin's second thought, this looks pretty damn useful. Let's see, one hand seal, requires large chakra reservishi, I think I can do this. He stood up, his hands forming a cross-shaped seal, okay, let's give it a go. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The genin hopeful felt a slight pull on his chakra and, with a poof, 2 fully formed clones appeared in front of him, on the other side of the scroll. For a moment, they simply gazed at each other, unable to believe it. Then, all 3 of them threw their arms in the air and cheered. Praise the Log Almighty, I did it. Finally, they stopped their celebrating long enough for one to say, now what? Well, I think we should try to learn some other stuff from this thing. Suggested another. But, Mizuki-sensei said we should just learn one. Yeah, but when else do you think we'll be able to learn stuff like this, if not now? I mean, we've got the scroll with the strongest techniques in the village right here. Right, you guys go read the rest of the scroll, then dispel once you've memorized it. Then I'll be able to try the other stuff out later. The clones nodded and sat down to read, while the real Naruto sat under a tree, thinking that his life as a ninja was pretty much assured now. Eventually, the clones finished reading and dispelled. Naruto grinned as the acquired knowledge of the clones entered his brain. Two of the techniques he felt he would be able to do without much trouble. The Kage Shuriken and the Bunshin Daibakuha. After all, if he could make Kage Bunshin of himself, doing it to a bunch of Shuriken wouldn't be too hard. And as for the Bunshin Daibakuha, it was the clone doing all the work, causing its own chakra to compress until it exploded. Still, it would take some practice to perfect them. Naruto. Naruto looked up, startled. Iruka stood by a tree, looking rather pissed. Not that Naruto noticed. He just grinned. Yo, Iruka-sensei. Naruto, do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? Asked Iruka angrily. Naruto tilted his head, confused. What do you mean? Didn't I pass? Iruka blinked, pass. Pass what? You know, that secret test Mizuki-sensei told me about. The one where, if I got that scroll, he nodded at the scroll, and learned a technique from it, I'd pass and be made a ninja. Mizuki? Muttered Iruka, you's the one who told me you stole the scroll. Stole? What are you? Ah, there you are, Naruto-kun. Mizuki had appeared at the edge of the clearing. Now give me the scroll. Instead, Naruto dashed out to the middle and grabbed the scroll, slinging it onto his back, frowning suspiciously at the gray-haired Chunin. Hey sensei, Iruka says that I stole this thing. Got any idea what he's talking about? Iruka? Damn. Mizuki cursed. He hadn't expected Iruka to show up. I'd meant to just kill you and take the scroll, but now things are getting complicated. Mizuki, you traitor. Yelled Iruka. Mizuki threw a bunch of shuriken, pinning the scarred Chunin to the tree behind him. Shut up, Iruka. I never did like your prattling. Hey. What are you doing? Yelled Naruto, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Why me? Mizuki gave an evil smirk. You want to know why? Alright brat, I'll tell you. Iruka's eyes widened, no Mizuki, don't. It's forbidden. Mizuki ignored him, tell me Naruto, what do you remember about the Kyuubi attack? Naruto frowned, what do you mean? Didn't the Yondaime kill it? Kill? Ha. Mizuki laughed, that was just a lie told by the adults to the younger generation because of a law put in place to protect you. A law to hide the truth. No. Stop, Mizuki. Screamed Iruka desperately. What truth? Whispered Naruto. The Yondaime couldn't kill the Kyuubi, so he did the next best thing. He sealed it inside the only child to be born on that day. Mizuki roared, pulling the massive shuriken he carried off his back. All the pieces were starting to fall into place in Naruto's head. This was the reason for the glares he'd received all his life, all the hatred. Saw him. You, Naruto Uzumaki, are the Kyuubi no Yoko. Yelled the now frenzied Chunin, even Iruka hates you. After all, you're the reason his parents died. Naruto looked over at Iruka, hoping this wasn't true. But the expression on his teacher's whitened face told him that Mizuki was being truthful. Various emotions whirled through his head as he tried to make sense of everything. He'd already come to the conclusion of what the Yondaime had done with the Kyuubi, but to hear it spoken out loud. He was dimly aware of Mizuki shouting something else, then the sound of a large something flying through the air. A shadow fell across him and he was shoved to the ground, then something warm dripped on his face. Then he realized what he was seeing. Iruka was crouching over him, having taken the shuriken meant for Naruto. Sensei? He asked. Didn't Iruka hate him? Bekase was like you. Gasped the injured man, after my parents' deity acted the same way you died always acting out, trying to be recognized. Naruto, take the scroll and run. Don't let Mizuki get his hands on it. For a moment, Naruto just stared blankly, uncomprehending. Then, slipping out from Iruka, he ran for the trees, quickly vanishing into the forest. Damn. Mizuki turned to run after him, but Iruka had gotten to his feet, wrenching the Fuuma shuriken from his back. I won't let you. He yelled, hurling the weapon at the traitorous Chunin. Mizuki simply jumped out of the way, the metal star flying off into the distance. I'll deal with you later. Mizuki snickered, for now though, I need to get that scroll and to kill the demon brat. Then he ran. Iruka tried to run after him, but winced at the stab wound in his back. Still, he hurried after Mizuki as quickly as he could, despite the injury. Later. Naruto leaned on a tree trunk, panting. A sudden rustling made him jerk, getting into an offensive position. He relaxed slightly as Iruka stumbled out of the foliage. "Naruto," panted Iruka, slouching slightly to catch his breath. "It's alright, he's gone now." Naruto suddenly threw himself at the man, punching him in the stomach. He doubled over, the wind knocked out of him. With a puff of smoke he turned into Mizuki. "What the hell?" He gasped, "How'd you know I wasn't Iruka?" The blonde smirked, "Because I'm Iruka." So saying, he transformed into the scar-nosed man. "What the fuck, Iruka?" asked Mizuki angrily, "Why are you protecting him? Don't you hate the Kyuubi for taking away your family?" Unbeknownst to both Chunin, the object of their discussion lay crouched behind a nearby bush, listening to their every word. "It's true I do hate the Kyuubi." A deeply cold feeling spread through Naruto at this. "However, I will protect him for 2 reasons. Firstly, I cannot allow you to get your hands on that scroll." Naruto felt depressed and bitter at the insinuation that the scroll was more important than him. But Iruka wasn't finished. "Secondly, and more importantly, is because he is not the Kyuubi. He is my student and a citizen of Konohagakure no Sado. Naruto Uzumaki." These last words dispelled the coldness from Naruto's mind. Iruka believed in him. Snorting, Mizuki lifted his second Fuma shuriken from his back and began spinning it in his hand. "Well, if you feel that way, I'll just have to make sure you're there to greet him once I kill him." Suddenly, an orange blur flew from the bushes and nailed Mizuki in the face with a flying kick. Mizuki sailed a few yards before hitting the ground with a thud, slightly dazed. "I won't let you hurt Iruka-sensei, team," yelled Naruto, getting into a taijutsu stance. "Just you try it, punk. Whatever you do, I'll return 1,000 times," shouted Mizuki. Drawing his arm back, he hurled the shuriken at Naruto. As the large metal star hurtled towards Naruto, however, something strange happened. Like before, when Naruto had nearly snapped at Kiba, his left eye darkened to brown. Then it changed again, becoming a glowing pale green, with the pupil splitting into a cross shape. To him, the flying weapon had suddenly slowed down in midair. As it flew at him, Naruto leisurely stepped aside, out of the star's path. Then he reached up and seized it by the hole in the center, stopping it in its flight. All the while, his now mismatched eyes never left the man who had thrown it. "What, how?" Mizuki gasped. Iruka wondered the same thing. "Is that all?" asked Naruto. "'Cause I think you said something about 1,000 times something about him was different to Iruka." Though his appearance had not changed, he now stood with an air of calmness that seemed to be the same, yet the opposite of, his earlier determination. Naruto slid his arm through the hole in the shuriken down to his shoulder in order to free up his hand. Bringing both hands up to form a cross-shaped seal, he asked, "Is this what you meant? Kage Bunshin no Jutsu?" The entire clearing erupted in smoke. Iruka blinked, sure his eyes were playing tricks on him. The entire clearing, as well as some of the forest beyond it, was now immersed in a sea of orange. Then he realized that it was actually an army of clones. Kage Bunshin. He thought with shock. But that's a Jonin level technique. When did he? Iruka remembered what Naruto had said earlier. He actually learned a technique from the Forbidden Scroll. His awe was then replaced by horror at the thought of multiple Narutos pranking the village. Log help us all. Mizuki, meanwhile, was very near pissing himself. How the hell could the dead last of all people suddenly make thousands of clones? And each of them was staring at him pitilessly. Then he noticed another detail, which only increased his fear. "Why your eyes? You really are a demon, aren't you?" Each clone staring at him had a single green eye, glowing in the dark of the forest. The real Naruto ignored him. "Ready?" he called, raising the shuriken. "Ready?" chorused the others, raising their own. Fire. The memory of Mizuki's scream of terror would forever be proudly preserved in Naruto's head. Miraculously, none of the weapons they hurled at him actually killed him, just cut him up pretty badly. When the traitor lay in an unconscious bloody twitching pile, all the clones dispersed, leaving Naruto to survey his handiwork. His eye had returned to normal, again without him realizing. "Hey sensei," he said, turning to Iruka. "I think I overdid it a little." He chuckled nervously. Naruto muttered Iruka ruefully. Then he smiled, "Come over and close your eyes." Mystified, Naruto did as he was told. After a moment, Iruka said, "Alright, you can open them now." Opening his eyes, he looked at Iruka. Nothing seemed different about his teacher, except that his forehead was bare. Naruto put his hand to his own forehead and felt the metal plate of Iruka's headband, tied there securely. "Congratulations, Naruto," said Iruka, smiling, "you've graduated." Naruto's eyes widened. Then, with a shout of joy, he hugged the Chunin, who grunted in pain from his wounds, though he laughed as well. "Yes, well done Naruto-kun," said a voice behind them. Naruto turned, still grinning. "GG." The Hokage was standing before them, smiling benignly. Around him, not looking as happy, were 4 masked Anbu. Others were there also, taking away the unconscious Mizuki. "You two. We must have a discussion at the tower." With that the old man set off, with Naruto and Haruka following. Hokage Tower, later. An hour's time found all three of them sitting in the Hokage's office. Haruka had told the aged leader everything, from Mizuki telling him Naruto had stolen the Forbidden Scroll, to Mizuki revealing the Kyuubi's existence to Naruto, and, finally, to the details of the traitor's defeat. When Haruka had finished, Sarutobi sat back and took a pull on his pipe, his eyes fixed on Naruto. Finally he spoke, "Very well. Haruka, go get your wounds tended to. I need to have a few words with Naruto-kun here." The Chunin hesitated for a moment, as if considering disobeying his Hokage in order to stay with his student. Then, deciding against it, he turned and walked out, the door shutting behind him. After a moment of staring at each other, the Hokage leaned back in his chair, looking weary. "So, now you know the truth, Naruto." Naruto merely blinked. "The truth about what, Jiji?" he asked innocently. Well stammered Sarutobi, slightly unsettled, "The truth about the Kyuubi being." "Oh right, sealed in me," Naruto said, a tick mark appearing on his temple, though he didn't change his position in the chair. "Nice of you to tell me before now. I definitely could have done without all the confusion. Demon brat, Kyuubi brat, that's all they ever called me. Did you ever think, ever consider, Hokage-sama?" Sarutobi winced at the stiff honorific, sinking deeper into his seat with every word. "That I might want to know why I was called all those things. I mean," Naruto leaned forward, his voice rising in anger, "when you keep a secret about someone, you're supposed to let them in on that secret so they can at least know why half the fucking village hates their guts and is out to kill them." Sarutobi flinched. He'd never seen Naruto lose his temper so completely. Then he tried to speak up. "Naruto, I kept it a secret because I was protecting you. If the younger generation." Naruto cut him off with a slashing motion with his hand. "I don't care whether you didn't want kids to know or not. Whatever law you made to stop it didn't work. The parents still all made their kids hate me." He broke off, staring wistfully at nothing, "Will except one," he murmured. Then, resuming his tirade, he went on, "Besides which, old man, there's still the fact that this whole secret was about me. Even if other kids couldn't know, you could have still told me." By this time, Naruto had calmed down slightly, though he was still angry. Voice shaking, he hurled his last accusation, "Didn't you trust me, Jiji?" Sarutobi looked down at his desk, ashamed. He could hear hurt contained in the question. He knew Naruto was right. "I guess I didn't, Naruto. Not entirely," he said quietly, "but I swear, I did mean to tell you, eventually. When I thought you were ready." Naruto laughed bleakly, "Bit late for that, Jiji. Still, why am I complaining about the past? The secret's out and I finally know. For now, that's good enough." The Sandaime blinked hard. 1 minute, Naruto was shouting his head off about not being told a secret, the next he was saying that it was fine as long as he knew now. While he felt relieved that the worst seemed to be over, he still felt guilty that he hadn't trusted the boy. "Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way." "I agree. But, is there anything else you wish to know, Naruto-kun?" Naruto sat up straight. "Yeah." His eyes narrowed, "Tell me who my parents were. If you want to show me that you trust me, I must know that, at least. And before you start saying I'm not ready, I just learned that I'm the container of the strongest demon in existence. If I can handle that calmly, I can handle knowing my parents' names." "Very well," Sarutobi breathed in deeply, "your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, a survivor from the former village of Uzushiogakure, as well as one of our most powerful jonin." Naruto felt a slight surge of pride, "And my father?" Deciding not to sugarcoat it, the Sandaime said bluntly, "Your father was the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze." Whatever Naruto had been expecting, it certainly wasn't that. For a moment, he just sat in his chair, processing this last bit of info in shock. Finally he said, "So the man who sealed the Kyuubi inside me is also my father, my idol." Sarutobi braced for another explosion of fury. But Naruto just laughed, "Man, if that isn't irony," then he frowned, "How come I didn't see it before? I look just like the guy." "I'm glad you're taking this so well, Naruto-kun. I would have thought you would angry at your father." Naruto shrugged. It was pointless, in his opinion, to hate the dead. He knew why his father had done what he did. The man couldn't have asked some other family for their child. As Hokage, he had to do it himself. Naruto had a sudden thought. "Boy, Jiji, why couldn't my dad just seal the Kyuubi inside himself? Would he need a baby?" he asked. "If your father had taken the Kyuubi into himself, its power would have overloaded his chakra coils and burst free again," explained the Hokage, "whereas a newborn child's coils are still undeveloped, allowing them grow around the Bijuu's power and contain it." Nodding in understanding, Naruto stood up, stretching. "Well, thanks for the info, old man," he said, "it's given me a lot to think about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go sleep. It's been a long day." He turned to go. "Wait a moment, Naruto." Naruto stopped just in front of the door. "Be sure to be at the academy in a week's time for your team assignments." Naruto nodded to show he'd heard, then he was gone. Naruto's apartment, Anne. If you're getting sick of this chapter, don't worry. The end is in sight. Like the previous night, Naruto didn't even bother with putting on his pajamas. He just flopped onto his bed, the exhaustion of the day's events finally catching up to him. He was asleep within minutes. Mindscape. Naruto awoke with shock. To him, he'd just gone from lying on his somewhat comfortable bed to lying on a cold damp stone floor. Sitting up and looking around, he saw he was in some underground tunnel. The walls were covered in elaborate but random carvings which were glowing with a faint light. Deciding that he should try to get somewhere, Naruto began walking towards the light at the end of the tunnel. Not that light. As he walked, Naruto noticed that the walls seemed unusually dark, as if a great amount of water had recently passed through there. Eventually, he reached what lay beyond the tunnel exit. He blinked. He was standing in a massive, relatively bright chamber, the ceiling of which was so high he could not see it. Against the back wall, he saw a cage. Unlike the rest of the chamber, the interior of the cage was enshrouded in darkness, obscuring whatever it was that it contained. "Took you long enough," said a voice. Naruto tore his gaze from the cage to look for the source of the voice. Not too far from him was a chair, the same chair from his dream, it seemed. There was someone sitting hunched in it already. As Naruto crept closer, he saw that the stranger was wearing some odd clothes. A black jacket covered in red marks with a hood obscuring most of his face, and pair of these strange blue pants. Lying curled up next to the chair, in a red kimono that contrasted with the man's weird garments, was a young girl with bright red hair. She seemed to be sleeping rather fitfully, tossing and turning on the floor and groaning quietly. After a moment, the man in the chair looked up, meeting Naruto's blue eyes with a pair that did not match. One eye was brown and normal looking, nothing strange there. His other eye, however, was a glowing pale green, with a cross-shaped pupil. Naruto found its intense stare unsettling. Then the man blinked, and the eyes looking at Naruto were both brown. "What's the matter, kid? Lose your voice in the tunnel. Say something." Despite his slightly menacing appearance, his voice was surprisingly light and humorous. Almost immediately, Naruto voiced his question, "Who are you?" Smiling, the man reached up and dragged his hood down. Seeing his face, Naruto thought it resembled his own, except both the stranger's eyes and hair were brown, with the spikes pointing towards the back. "Questions already? Okay then, my name is Alex Mercer. Nice to meet you, Naruto." Chapter 5. Both Naruto and Alex stared at each other, not saying anything. Finally, Naruto broke the awkward silence. "Alex Mercer," he said, playing with a foreign-sounding name in his mind. "That's gotta be one of the weirdest names I've ever heard," he said, snickering. To his credit, Alex kept a straight face, though an observer might have seen his eye twitch slightly. "I'd rather not hear that from a fish cake if it's all the same to you," he said lightly, albeit angrily. "Do it's Maelstrom, for the love of Log," yelled the insulted blonde. "If your name is Maelstrom, then my name is most certainly not weird. Uncommon for this world, maybe, but in mine it's perfectly normal," replied Alex with a tone of finality. Seeing that Naruto was still scowling, he sighed, "Look, I'm sorry. I've just heard that same thing one too many times." He rubbed the back of his head, the way Naruto himself often did. "Why don't we start over? Nice to meet you, Naruto, the name's Alex." He stuck out his hand, now grinning. Naruto stood there, nonplussed, then reached out and shook the proffered hand. "Wait, how did you know my name? And where are we, anyway?" he asked as they let go. "Well," Alex raised his fingers as he started rattling off details. "Let's see, blonde, spiky hair. Check. Blue eyes. Check. Wears bright orange. Check. Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Check." Naruto's eyes widened. But black-garbed man hadn't finished, and finally, son of the Yondaime Hokage. "With all those facts against you, who else could it be?" Naruto gaped at him in shock. He had only found out those last two details today, yet this man had spoken all of them as if he'd known them for years. And they'd never even met before. "I believe your other question was where are we, right? Well, that's easy to answer. We are inside your mindscape." Naruto frowned. "Wait, mindscape? As in, inside my head? As in, inside me?" Alex nodded. Then, seeming to remember the girl, he stooped and, picking her up, propped her on the chair. "Yes, to all three of those. Care to guess where exactly in your mind we are?" Naruto looked around. Besides the sheer size of the room, nothing about it seemed significant to him. Besides the cage, which had a distinct look of something that did not belong. Like before, he looked up at it. This time, however, he noticed something else. High above, fixed to the center of the bars, was a piece of paper with a word seal with that. It clicked. They were standing before the seal of the Kyuubi. "Sharp one, aren't you?" asked Alex lowly, having pulled his hood back up over his head. Naruto pointed into the darkness beyond the bars. That's the Kyuubi?" he asked. His mouth had gone dry at his realization. Alex tilted his head, considering yes and no. He said, the only thing inside that cage is the Yauki, her power. As for the Kyuubi herself, he looked back at the sleeping girl in the chair, she's not capable of harming anyone. Naruto followed his gaze with apprehension. She's the Kyuubi. How did she get out? She has a name, you know. Said Alex, looking weary, it's Kina. I'm the one who got her out. As a result, I also gave you that power. Naruto frowned, you mean the power that makes me stop moving, so I can see people who want to beat me to a pulp? That power. Yep. Get rid of it. Alex was caught off guard, eh? You heard me. That power is nothing but an annoyance. Sure, it shows me where enemies are hiding, but if I'm paralyzed while I use it, they can just walk up and kill me. So get rid of it. Alex nodded for a moment, alright, done. Anything else? Yeah. Explain to me why, exactly, you decided to release the reason my life was hell. Hey, don't blame her for that. It's not her fault. Don't lie, she attacked the village. What the hell do you mean it's not her fault? Alex shrugged, she says that some man with red eyes hypnotized her into attacking Konoha. Considering how often that has happened, I'm inclined to believe her. His expression darkened, both of his eyes becoming green. If you start blaming her for something she couldn't control, you'll be no worse than the villagers you hate. Naruto flinched at the accusation, then looked at the girl. Alex was right, he realized. There was no point in holding a grudge for something that had happened years ago. Dimly, he noticed that she had some lumps on her head that were obviously ears. He walked over to the chair and looked down at her. She's not much older than me. He thought. How could he hate someone that young? Then he would be just like the villagers. Then he noticed that her clothes were very damp, as if she'd been immersed in a great deal of water. Why is she so wet? He asked. That's your fault, actually. Said Alex. What do you mean? What did I do? Is she alright? Asked Naruto, having finally decided that she was trustworthy. Well, a while ago you must have had some life-alteringly horrible experience, which triggered a flood in here, this being your mindscape and all. I was fine, but Kina-chan had to hold on to me for dear life or get swept away. I highly doubt she's alright. She looks like she'll need a hug when she wakes up. Naruto remembered the raw, all-consuming despair that had overtaken him when he'd failed the genin exam. Sorry. Alex waved off Naruto's apology, it's fine, it's fine. We're both still alive and that's the important part. Speak for yourself, Baka. Said a quiet feminine voice. Kina had finally woken up and sat, curled on the chair, eyeing both males piteously and shivering. Hey Kina-chan, how do you feel? Asked Alex concernedly. I nearly got washed away and drowned. How do you think I feel? She asked, still trembling. How are you so unaffected? Because of what I am. Alex turned to Naruto, could you make her dry? I do it myself, but the mindscape doesn't like me helping her, so you have to do it. He whispered, it'll probably make her feel better. You just have to imagine it. Taken by surprise, Naruto did as he was asked. As she dried off, her trembling lessened, though she still looked afraid. Naruto stepped closer, concerned. Are you alright? Her response was to just reach out and hug him unexpectedly. Clinging to the boy, she finally calmed down enough to look at Alex. A long time ago, you told me to wait until our jailer came here before you would tell us what you were. Well, he's here, so start talking. Alex sighed, figures you'd remember that far back. Naruto, more chairs please. This will take a while. Naruto concentrated, creating 2 more chairs. After they had all sat down, Alex began his story. Alright, I suppose this starts with my job. I was once a scientist employed at a company called Gentech. Seeing Kina and Naruto's confusion, he said quickly added, it doesn't exist anymore, so I'd be surprised if you had heard of it. Anyway, I worked with some other scientists on a special project. We were designing a virus for a certain branch of the military. The Black Watch. What did they want it for? Asked Naruto. What else? They wanted to make their soldiers stronger. The only problem was, we weren't having any luck at all. We kept failing all our tests. Finally, I guess the Black Watch decided our project cost too much with not enough results. But they couldn't have us telling anyone what we had done for them. So they started killing off all the researchers and scientists associated with the project. Fortunately, or unfortunately depending on your view, I caught on to what they were doing and tried to run. In the process, I swiped a sample of the virus before I went, thinking I might use it to try and bargain with them. You just ran? Asked Kina incredulously, where did you go? I didn't get very far. Said Alex dryly, they caught me just outside of Penn Station, that's another place that's not around anymore, in case you're wondering. I immediately learned that they weren't going to bother making a deal. They just shot and killed me on sight. Naruto paled, killed? He asked nervously. You're a ghost? Asked Kina curiously. No. I'm just dead. This is where it gets interesting. You will remember that I had stolen a sample of the virus, right? Well, when they shot me. What does that mean, they shot you? Interrupted Naruto. Don't interrupt. I'll tell you some other time. Anyway, when I died, the vial with the virus broke. Then, for some unknown reason, the virus entered my dead body and broke it down. Having absorbed the DNA of my corpse, it rebuilt itself as me. This time, it was Kina who interrupted, wait. The virus became you? How does that work? Why did it work? I thought the experiment kept failing. Well, the problem we always had with the virus was it would give the infected great strength, speed and all that other good stuff. But they would have no reason or sanity. They were just monsters that indiscriminately killed anything that got near. In my case, however, I still maintained my mind while gaining other powers. As for we don't know. Maybe I happened to swipe the one strain that was good. Maybe it entered my body before being exposed to anything else. Hell, maybe it was just because I was dead. Who knows? Powers such as? Kina prompted. Oh, right. Well, I could shape-shift, form claws, a shield, that sort of thing. Obviously, I also got faster and stronger. Oh yeah, I have unlimited stamina too, though that might be from my being dead. Most importantly, whenever I killed someone, I would absorb them, converting their body into biomass to heal myself, as well as gain strength. Naruto looked sickened. You killed people? He asked, horrified, and you ate them? Are you sure you're sane? Oh, shut up. I had to do what was needed to survive. Snapped Alex, did you think the Black Watch was just going to sit back and let a new uncontrollable bioweapon be created in front of them? Hell no. Since the day I first woke up as myself, they were trying to end my existence. And that wasn't the worst of it. He continued. He'd gotten to his feet and begun pacing before his audience of two, his speech becoming more animated. When the vial with the virus shattered, it didn't just enter me. It spread to the dozens of people nearby and then to the rest of the city. So, not only was there an army of people who are like the Anbu of the military on one side, there was also a horde of bloodthirsty monsters on the other. I was stuck in the middle, just one man with deadly powers and no memories of how he got them. I had to find out a lot the stuff I told you later. He stopped, panting slightly. Quick, ask me a question, so I don't make myself dizzy from this pacing. How did you find out what happened if you had no memories? Asked Naruto, having become so entranced by Alex's story he'd forgotten his earlier disgust. Well said Alex, glad to change the subject away from the plague wars, as he called them, when I consumed someone. Naruto grimaced. Oh, get over it. Anyway, when I consumed someone, not only would I heal, but I would also gain their DNA. What exactly is DNA? Asked Kina, you keep mentioning it, but I don't really know that much about humans, so could you explain it? Yeah, I think I might have been out when Iruka-sensei talked about it. Concurred Naruto. Alex looked at the both of them, annoyed, then sighed. DNA, to cut straight to the point, is what makes a person what they are. Appearance, personality, memories, behavior, that sort of thing. Every type of living thing has it. So, if I absorb a person's DNA, I become able to copy everything about them. Appearance, abilities, hell even their clothes, though I'm not sure why. Having absorbed all this, Naruto sat silently, his face dark. That still doesn't change the fact that you eat people. He said mutinously. Will you stop going on about that? Roared Alex, losing his temper. Yes, I did eat people, because it's part of what I am. Sure, over the years, I've refined myself to the point where it's not absolutely vital, but I still have to feed. And eventually, so will you. Naruto paled, what do you mean? He asked nervously. Alex winced. He hadn't meant to say that so early. He sighed, I don't know why. Perhaps it happened because of my being sealed in you, but whatever. The point is, Alex put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, looking grave, my soul is leaking into yours. Sooner or later, you're going to end up like me, power-wise and mentally. We will still be separate beings, but we will have many similarities. Naruto sat back, the announcement that he would become a man-eating shapeshifter bouncing around in his head. How can you tell? He asked. How can you tell I'm going to become like you? Alex considered for a moment. There are multiple answers I could give for that. Since I'm a virus, of course I'd infect my container. I can control your mindscape. Because I wanted it to happen. It could be any of those. Maybe others. Which one, I don't know. The important part, though, is that it will happen. Naruto bowed his head. This time it was Kina who spoke up. Hey, don't be so depressed. Look at it this way. Now you have two people willing to give you their powers. Naruto looked up in surprise, having forgotten she was in the room. What do you mean, two? This seal may stop me from leaving, but it's designed so that you can tap into my power if you ever need it. So, think about it, if you can use Yauki, and, oh, what was that stuff you use Alex? Biomass. Right. With biomass and yaki, plus your own reserves, you'll be one of the most kick-ass ninja out there. She cheered, raising her fist. Naruto stared at her, not having expected this optimistic outburst from the infamous Kyuubi no Yoko. Why would you help me? He asked. She shrugged, why not? I'm stuck in here, so there's nothing else I could do. Besides, she looked down sadly, because of me, you had to grow up shunned by nearly everyone in Konoha. In payment, I will give you whatever power you need. She's not the only one. Alex spoke up, a determined gleam in his brown eyes. I may not have such a concrete reason as her, but I will give you whatever help I can. Naruto stared at both of them. Before today, he hadn't had any friends. But now, he had two people who claimed they would help him. No, he thought, remembering how Hinata had comforted him in his darkest moment. 3. And again, don't worry about the whole eating people thing. Alex was saying, drawing Naruto's attention, I told you, I've refined my powers so that you won't have to kill to survive. You still need to eat a lot, but it's an improvement. Naruto grinned, it's alright. It doesn't seem to bother me so much anymore. Alex frowned, that probably means the fusion has begun. Now that we've made contact, things should start picking up. When you leave, be sure to check your appearance. Something might have changed. Naruto nodded, okay. Know how do I leave? He asked lamely. Hina furrowed her brow, well, you got here by falling asleep, she said, maybe you leave by waking up. But I'm already. Real world. Awake. He said into his pillow. Rolling over, he sat up, looking around. He was back in his bedroom. No, not back. I never left. He corrected himself. It was already morning, the sunlight streaming in through his dirty window. Boy, don't forget check the mirror for anything different. Said a voice in the back of his head. He jumped, looking around. Alex, is that you? So I'll spare you the sarcastic retort for now. Yes, it's me. How are talking to me? I'm in your head. We've made contact. It's not that difficult to work out. Came the irritable reply. Also, now we can see everything you see. We being you and Kina, right? There was no answer, just a projected feeling that said do I really have to answer that? Okay, dumb question, sorry. Getting off the bed, he made his way to the bathroom, hoping to get a shower as well as check his appearance. Looking in the mirror, he gasped in shock. Well, he had not changed very much, the one thing that did was quite startling. His left eye was the same brown as Alex's own eyes. Hey Alex. I think it is starting. This does not surprise me. A moment of silence, Kina thinks it looks awesome. About that, why haven't I heard from Kina? I thought she'd be very chatty after our encounter. Oh no. For now, only I can talk directly to you, she can't. I'll try and fix that later. But in the meantime, she's right. It does look cool. Yeah it is, but the villagers might freak if they see it. Naruto replied, getting in the shower. Just don't make eye contact. They won't see anything amiss if they can't see your eyes. True. Naruto suddenly had another thought. Hey Alex. Do you think I can make this new eye go all green like yours do? There was a musing silence in his head. Finally, when Alex answered, there was a slight tremble in his voice, as if he were trying hard not to laugh, most likely. I mean, normally, all it does is speed up your perception a bit, that's not very hard to achieve for someone like me, I mean us. We'll have to see during training. Naruto blinked, training. I haven't even gotten my team yet and you want me to train. Of course. We need to see what you're capable of. You don't have all of my powers yet. As he spoke, Alex's voice shook even more, trying not to laugh. Naruto's eye twitched angrily, may I ask what the hell is so funny? At this, Alex burst out in a strangely high-pitched cackle of laughter, I'm sorry. He howled, I'm sorry, it's just so hilarious. Puzzled, Naruto sent him an image of a question mark. He furrowed his brow at the image he got in return. It showed Kina staring off into apparent space. Her eyes were slightly unfocused in a look of awe and, along with a slight blush, there was a trickle of blood on her upper lip. What's wrong with her? Still chuckling, Alex said, remember when I said we can see whatever you do? Yeah. Well, when you got in the shower, she instantly becomeravided. You might want to be careful where you look in the future. Hi Alex's voice cut off suddenly. After a moment, Naruto felt his presence return, with a feeling of amusement. What is it? Did she say something? Yes, she said that whoever ends up becoming your girlfriend will be very, very lucky, close quotes. Naruto facepalmed, great, he thought, I've got a perverted fox girl living in my head. Actually, the only bad part of that is that she's on the inside, so you can't really do anything. Said Alex's voice musingly. After thinking about that for a moment and figuring out what the man meant, Naruto deadpanned, correction, 2 perverts in my head. Just great. 3 perverts, if you count yourself. Said Alex, still in that thoughtful tone. The hell are you talking about? I'm no pervert. Naruto asked furiously. In answer, Alex merely sent an image Naruto's way. It had Hinata in it. And Kina. They were naked. And in very enticing positions. The resultant nosebleed, as well as the need to finish his shower with cold water, told Naruto that arguing against Alex was not good for his dignity. Ah, who needs dignity? Seriously, it just makes your sense of humor suffer. Hang on, I'll be right back. Alex's voice fell silent, leaving Naruto to put his clothes on in silence. As he prepared to leave for the training field, he looked inward. Hey, you guys still there? Hello? Hiya, Naruto-kun. Came Kina's cheerful voice from the back of his head, though she sounded irked. Kina? I thought you couldn't speak through the link. She couldn't. Said Alex's voice calmly. I managed to make a new one however, so now she can. Noting that his new friend's calmness seemed rather fake, Naruto asked, what's wrong? Kina made me show her the picture. Said Alex, you'll be surprised to hear she didn't like it. Now she's chasing me around the room, trying to hit me. Come back here, you bastard. Shouted Kina furiously, just you wait, you can't keep running forever. Plainly she didn't listen to my explanation of my powers. Alex muttered to Naruto, I think she forgot about the unlimited stamina part. I've run across the city and back and not gotten tired in the least. Speaking of which, thought Naruto as he strolled down the streets to a nearby training ground, I'm getting the feeling that you still haven't told us everything. It took Alex a moment to answer. When he did, his tone was grim, you are correct. There are things that I have yet to tell you. However, I ain't telling you shit until you do some training. Call it incentive. Kina's right, you are a bastard. Naruto thought dully. A bastard who can show you pictures of the girl you like. Corrected Alex smugly. Naruto, for the life of himself, couldn't come up with an argument for that. I'll take your silence for an agreement, then. Shut up. He grunted, let's get this over with. Yes, let's. Chapter 6. Storia sat at his desk, bored out of his mind. For the past 5 minutes since getting to the training field, Naruto had just stood there, not doing anything. Storia knew he was still talking to Alex, but still. Ever heard of multitasking? Storia's mental ramblings were interrupted by a tiny hand tugging on his pant leg. Looking down, he was greeted by the sight of a tiny, red-haired girl looking back up at him. It was one of the term Fuoka if he remembered correctly. Looking down at her round face and wide, yellow eyes, he could see why all the other girls adored her. She was rather cute. He reached down, patting her on the head, intending to ask her what she wanted. Yo. He yanked his hand back, shaking the burned appendage. Oh, right, he thought dismally, she's a term, a pyromance. An. Term I made up. Sounds better than pyromancer. Putting his glasses on, he leaned toward, inspecting the part of the girl that had burned his hand. With the improved vision provided by his glasses, he was able to see that her hair glowed and emitted sparks, like a burning ember. She made a noise of impatience at his lack of greetings. Oh right, is there something you wanted? O.V. Blair? Asked the girl. Storia sweat dropped, of all the Italian. What the hell? I don't know Italian. I can't understand you. What about Blair? Fuoka huffed. Dove. She said emphatically, putting the edge of one hand to her forehead and looking around exaggeratedly. Storia merely blinked for a moment, then got it. Oh. You mean where? She's probably somewhere among the bookshelves. He thought for a moment, frowning, probably not a place you should go. You might burn it down by accident. Also, those books aren't for you to see just yet, you'll go get her. Wandering the books he knew so well, with the help of some assisting gargoyles, he eventually came across Blair, exactly where he knew she would be. Sitting in a chair reading Itcha Paradise. Having fun? He asked sarcastically, a tick mark pulsing in his temple. Yep. She said cheerfully, not looking up from the porn, you really should write this stuff more often. She looked up, paling as she realized who she was speaking to, you uncle. She squeaked. You know, I actually didn't write that. Said Storia, the tick mark becoming more pronounced, I just recorded it over the guy's shoulder. Really? Wow, you're cheap. Blair said cheekily, quickly getting over her embarrassment. And you're supposed to be organizing this crap. He said loudly, I don't want that neat freak Mason to come up here and start one of his inspections. I couldn't get any work done the last time he pulled that. He kept insisting that the Oculus's pedestal was crooked. Damn retard kept touching and moving it. He also lost my place in my book cause the pages weren't open at the center. He calmed slightly, anyway, tidy Earthman aside, Fuoka term wants to see you. Blair looked surprised, really? What did she want? How the fuck should I know? He snapped, I could barely understand her when she asked for you. You're the one who's good with translations, you ask her. Alright, geez. Don't have to bite my head off. Blair muttered, gesturing for him to lead the way. Besides uncle, I thought you could understand other languages. Only when it comes to my chronicles. He replied, walking back along the twisting passages, as a narrator, I need to understand what's being said. It's not always that simple, though. Sometimes, certain aspects of the story will keep themselves hidden from me, leaving me just as clueless as you. Boy, growled Blair, a tick mark of her own appearing. At that moment, however, they reached the desk where Fuoka was waiting for them. Instantly forgetting her annoyance at the historian, Blair rushed over and picked up the young pyromance in a tight hug, squealing at her cuteness. Hey, why did I get burned and you didn't? Receiving no answer, Storia went back to his chair. The two females started up a conversation in Italian, their rapid speech leaving the narrator thoroughly confused. Eventually, they stopped talking and Blair turned to him, frowning slightly. Hey uncle, you remember that promise you made? When Storia raised his eyebrow in bewilderment, she continued, the one where, if I got enough people to join me, you would send me to that world where Alex is. It seems as if I've got one person now. Storia looked at the tiny, yellow-eyed girl incredulously, before looking back at Blair, that's not enough. You'll need 3 more people before I send you anywhere. Blair bristled indignantly, why are you serious? She yelled. Who knew how long it would take her to find the right Gorem to join her? Perfectly, said Storia. With that, he turned back to his book and placed his hands on the oculus. Back at Naruto verse. Naruto stood by some posts, ready to begin training. Alright, what should we do? He asked Alex. Well, to start with, we should see how much your strength has improved because that has definitely gone up, replied Alex. Try punching something, like that log. Naruto looked at the nearest post apprehensively. It was all well and good of Alex to tell him to punch it, but even Naruto knew that if you punched something harder than your fist, all you'd end up with was a broken hand, or at least bruised. Less worrying, more punch. Naruto's sweat dropped. Sighing, he drew back his fist and threw a punch at the log. It hit the log with a loud crunching sound. He winced, expecting to feel intense pain. When he didn't, he looked more closely at the log. There was a splintered dent in the wood, roughly the size of a fist. Eyes wide, he looked down at his hand, which seemed to be unharmed. Well, your strength seems to be good enough for now. Moving on, sit down. I need to explain some power stuff. Naruto obeyed, seating himself on the turf. What's this about? What do you mean, power stuff? I need to explain how your various energies are arranged so you can understand how to use them. Alex replied. Naruto frowned, alright. He suddenly found himself inside the mindscape, staring at Alex. Would you bring me here? He asked, can't you just tell me from the outside? Not really. I need to be able to see you in order to properly teach you. With a wave of his hand, Alex created a large chart. On the chart was a black outline of a person. Inside the outline, there were 2 kidney-shaped blue blobs, located in the abdomen. The blobs had a series of branching tendrils that spread throughout the interior of the diagram. Alright, this thing, he indicated the blue lines, is your normal chakra system. The 2 things in the middle are your chakra coils. Chakra acts in several ways. It flows throughout your body, like blood, except it can be used as energy for things such as jutsu and enhancing muscle performance. It can also be used in ways to differently affect things around you, such as healing, walking on water and making weapons sharper. Why are you bothering with this? Naruto interrupted, we went over this at the academy. Alex just gave Naruto a deadpan look, and how much of the stuff at the academy did you actually hear? Didn't you always just joke around and get kicked out by all the teachers that thought you were the Kyuubi? Just listen. He resumed his lecture, explaining to the blonde the different elements that chakra could imitate and the properties of each. So, he finished, seeing Naruto's impatience, moving on. An orange ball appeared on the chart between the chakra coils. This is Kina-chan's Yaki. Yaki, unlike chakra, is capable of acting on its own if not given instruction. For instance, if you attack someone while using it and miss, the Yaki will reach out and hit them anyway. One of the problems with using Yaki is that you can't access it yourself. Naruto, who had become interested at this new information, asked, what do you mean? Alex pointed at the seal on the back wall, that thing is blocking you from drawing on Kina's power. Originally, it would help you extract some Yaki to use, but since Kina herself is on the outside, the seal is clamping down on what remains of the Kyuubi within it. Fortunately, because Kina-chan is out here, you can still access the Yaki through her. He thought for a moment, it's Lickish can drag the Yaki out of the cage, because it's her power, and give it to you. Naruto nodded, then looked around suddenly. Speaking of which, where is Kina? Alex waved his hand, oh, she's around. Kinda got tired from chasing me. He grinned smugly. Then he grew serious again, anyway, there are other downsides to using Yaki. He began counting on his fingers, 1. When using Yaki, everyone immediately knows that you're there. It carries an enormous signature that even an amateur could detect. 2. You can't use jutsu while using Yaki. The nature of it is too volatile, and any attempts to use a jutsu will probably end up blowing up in your face. 3, and this is most important. Yaki is corrosive. Using it for any amount of time will burn you internally. Normally, with your healing, this would not be a problem. until you reach the four-tailed state. Wait, what? Asked Naruto, blinking in confusion. He had become completely engrossed in Alex's lecture and the mention of tails had caught him off guard. What do you mean, tails? Alex shook his head, having also been jerked out of his lecture. Didn't I say? He asked uncertainly, when you draw on enough of the Kyuubi's power, an aura of sorts appears around you, acting as a shield, typically in the shape of a fox. The aura possesses a chakra tail. When you use more it becomes 2, then 3 and so on. Anyway, when you reach 4 tails, the corrosive power becomes so much it starts to burn your skin off. Naruto winced. Yeah, it's painful. Since your regeneration is still active, you're constantly regrowing and burning off your skin, which causes you to bleed from your pores. The blood then mixes with the fox's aura and you end up looking like a red silhouette of chakra with no discernible features. Well, this does look totally badass, however, because you're regenerating and losing skin cells, you're also shortening your overall lifespan. Naruto's eyes widened. Are you serious? I mean, it sounds painful, but how would that shorten my life? Alex nodded satisfactorily, glad you asked. It's because of your cells. They can only reproduce a certain amount of times, and if they reproduce at an extremely fast rate continually, they start to die off faster. However, there is a way around this. Naruto raised his eyebrows, slightly skeptical, but also hopeful. Really? How? Alex spun and jabbed his finger at the black part of the diagram, which was the whole body. Your third form of energy, he said significantly, biomass. In a way, it is the opposite of Yauki. It only acts when controlled and is completely invisible to chakra senses. Also, while Yauki and normal chakra need to be drawn from a source, such as your chakra coils or the seal, biomass can be accessed from anywhere in your body because it is not truly located in any specific part. Naruto scratched his cheek in confusion. Alright, he said, frowning, you lost me. How can something be drawn from anywhere but not actually be anywhere? Alex grinned, delighted to able to explain such an impossibility. You see, he leaned in, speaking as if he feared being overheard, biomass is stored in a special pocket dimension. A mini-world, if you will, and the only door that can go there, metaphorically speaking, is your body. Naruto's head was spinning from the complicated jargon. So are you saying biomass is in a separate world altogether and I can draw it out using my body? Alex thought for a moment, then nodded, yes, that's it essentially. Also, since biomass is what your body is made of, you can dismiss that back to the void as well. What do you mean? Asked Naruto. Alex eyed, alright, bear with me, okay. What you have in your body right now, your innards and muscles, is like your own reserve of biomass. The virus that you and I both have allows you to produce an amount of biomass equal to what is already in your body. Then, sending this excess biomass to parts of your body, you can increase your strength twofold. Or you can use the virus to manipulate that biomass in order to change your shape. You with me so far? Naruto nodded. Okay, now imagine this. You need to change your arm into something, but there's not enough biomass in your body to change with. So, you draw some biomass out of the big reserve world in order to have enough. Then once you're done and need to change back, you dismiss the biomass as you do so. And that's not all. You can send whatever biomass you already have to the void, making yourself lighter. Any questions? Yeah, are we done? Asked Naruto, cause, while all this is interesting, I kinda want to go back to training. Alex frowned, if you must. When you wake up, make a bunch of clones. Real world. Naruto opened his eyes. He was still sitting by the dented log. Stretching, he stood up, bringing his hands up to form the now familiar cross-shaped seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He barked. Instantly, the field was filled with an army of orange-clad clones. Alright you guys, listen up. I've got a bunch of stuff for you to learn, so split up into teams. Each group will receive info on the technique they should learn. Now transmitting. All the real Naruto felt was an indistinguishable surge of color, sound, and information surging through his head. He staggered, overwhelmed. Then the mass of information seemed to spread out of his mind and towards the clones, leaving his head clear. The clones blinked and began murmuring to themselves. Naruto faintly heard the words whoa and awesome as they moved off into groups. Okay, made dozens of clones, now what? Now, you make 5 more clones. This time, though, mold your chakra while mixing it with your biomass. Naruto frowned, how do I do that? And why should I? Alex replied, don't worry. Drawing and molding biomass should come naturally to you. Just imagine the two mixing as you make the hand seal. As for why, well Kage Bunshin are ideal for training in chakra control, they can only train you physically by acting as training dummies. Uncertainly, Naruto put his hands into position again. This time however, he tried to feel for something other than chakra. At first he found nothing, then a cool thick substance seemed to materialize alongside his chakra coils. He imagined the two energies, the warm, watery feel of chakra and the cold, viscous sensation of the biomass, rising through his body to the crossed hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. This time, only 5 clones appeared, standing in a line. As Alex gave him instructions, Naruto relayed them to his doppelgangers. You guys are going to come at me one at a time. When one clone has been dispelled, another will come replace him. Understood? Hi! Yelled the Bunshin. Wasting no time, one clone ran at Naruto with surprising speed, punching out at him. Naruto, caught off guard by the swiftness of the clone, barely managed to dodge the oncoming fist. The attacking Bunshin stumbled as his strike went wide. Taking advantage of his copy's opening, Naruto darted forward and delivered a punch of his own. This one hit the clone squarely in the jaw, the strength of it sending him sprawling to the ground. Thinking his clone dispelled, Naruto turned back to the others, but before he could say next, something heavy, fast and strong collided with his back, knocking him to the ground. It was confusion as Naruto found himself pinned to the earth in an arm lock by his decidedly undispelled copy. He struggled against the grip holding him down, but the strength of the Kage Bunshin was too much. Boy, Alex. He yelled internally, got any suggestions? Cause some help would be good around now. Try channeling biomass to your arms. Alex said quickly. He's not augmenting his own strength, so it'll give you an advantage. Not even bothering to question his tenant's orders, Naruto drew on the biomass and sent it surging into the muscles of his arms. Instantly, the hands holding him down vanished. No, not vanish, it just seemed that way. Naruto's own new power made him feel as if the angry doppelganger was doing nothing. With ease, he flipped over, breaking the clone's grip. He was on his feet in an instant, facing down the copy. He rushed his adversary and, before his opponent could do more than gulp, pummeled him with a barrage of punches. During his assault, Naruto was dimly aware of his clone's bones breaking under the strength of his fists. Deciding to finish this with one more hit, he stepped back, the biomass leaving his arms. Then he spun, his leg whipping out and striking the clone in the chest, channeling the black power to his leg this time. The resultant blow sent the unfortunate body double flying and broke some ribs. It flew a good distance and landed at the edge of the field, finally dispelling with a quiet puff, its injuries too much for its chakra and biomass body. Naruto laughed, exhilarated, log damn, that was awesome. He yelled. Nice. Exclaimed Alex, clearly impressed, good use of biomass enhancement, as well as an epic finisher. Not bad, for a beginner. I can tell we'll be replaying that scene a lot, just for kicks, no pun intended. Cackling to himself, Naruto turned to the remaining, very nervous durable Bunshin, right, who's next? He asked evilly, cracking his knuckles with relish. The next clone in the line gulped audibly. 3 clones and an hour later. The last clone swung desperately at its creator. For the last hour, it had watched Naruto slaughter the rest of its brothers. Each clone's performance had improved with the defeat of the previous victims, putting up more of a fight as time went on. But each time Naruto had switched fighting styles, though it always ended in the same way. Shattering the copy's bones until it dispelled. This last clone was determined not to die like the others. It had managed to catch the original off guard and was now pounding him for all that it was worth. It didn't let him get a single opening as the clone punched, backhanded and kicked him at every chance it could. I like this one. Said Alex, watching critically from Naruto's eyes, try and remember its style so you can use it yourself. I'll get the memories when I kick his ass, you prick. Naruto shouted back into his mind as he tried desperately to block the attacks, and I don't see you doing anything. Help me out here. Why? Asked the human virus simply, he's slowed down. Take advantage and win. Naruto blinked. Alex was right, the clone now seemed to be moving in slow motion. Why was that? On an impulse, he looked at his reflection in the copy's blue eyes. There, he saw that his right eye, or rather, his left, since it was a mirror image, had turned green with a crossed pupil. That'll be your adrenaline state. Said Alex musingly, Interrostinget speeds up your perception, allowing you to react to a dangerous situation with better reflexes. Meaning? Asked Naruto, frustrated. Meaning to you, he's just standing there, waiting for you to finish him. Why don't you oblige him? Naruto grinned, forgetting his annoyance. With barely a thought, he charged his legs with biomass and crouched, preparing to jump. This time, however, he also sent chakra to the Tenketsu in his feet. Then, as he pushed off the ground, he forced the built-up chakra out through the soles of his feet. The extra propulsion, as well as the added strength from the biomass, sent Naruto flying about 10 feet into the air. As he fell, he raised his leg, preparing to bring it down on his opponent. A second later, as gravity came into effect, his heel met the top of the clone's head, sending the unfortunate bastard face first into the ground with enough force to dispel it. Naruto crouched, his legs still stretched out in front of him. Then he looked around, where's the next one? He asked. There isn't one. You killed all of them. said Alex wryly. By the way, you're probably going to regret killing them so horribly. Why? Asked Naruto. All Alex did was to start a countdown, 321. He muttered. When he reached 1, Naruto seized his head in pain. The memories of his clones, which Alex had kept suppressed until after the fights, now came flooding to the surface, overloading his mind and driving him to unconsciousness. Mindscape. Naruto looked around, wondering what the hell had happened. One moment he was basking in the glory of having defeated his enemy, the next he was in a great deal of pain, and the next moment he was back in the seal chamber. Alex, he said dangerously, looking around for the source of his anger, where the hell are you? Would you have to knock me out? You could have just asked me to come. Hearing a noise behind him, he turned, he stopped. It was not Alex standing in front of him, but Kina. She looked at him, her red eyes very droopy. Oh, she mumbled, shuffling towards him, hello, Naruto-kun. She had the appearance of a person who had just been woken up from a deep sleep and would like to go back there. Where's Alex? Bastard wouldn't stop running away. Naruto remembered Alex saying something about Kina tiring herself out after trying to hit him for a perverted picture he'd created. He watched as she swayed, still apparently half asleep. Eerie, don't know where he is. He said as she stumbled closer, maybe he'll come back later. You should go back sleep, you look kinda tired. Okay. She slurred. Then, without much warning, her head fell forward, hitting Naruto in the chest with a soft thud. Surprised, Naruto stumbled back, both of them crashing to the floor. As Naruto lay dazed, Kina giggled lightly in her sleep. She crawled further up him, wrapping her arms around his middle and rubbing herself against him, revealing to him that she was quite as gifted as Hinata. Naruto groaned. This was the second time that week where he ended up being squished by a sleeping unconscious girl. Just great, he said, now all I need is for Alex to find me like this. Find you like what? Asked a voice innocently. Naruto looked up to see Alex standing over him, grinning like a loon. He had his index fingers and thumbs arranged in a rectangle. There was a flash of bright light. Ow. Alex was now holding a photo depicting Naruto with Kina cuddling against him. This'll go in my collection. He flicked his hand, causing the picture to vanish. What were you saying? He asked. Naruto would have gladly have gotten up to pound that smug smile off of Alex, but Kina was still squishing herself against him and he didn't want to wake her up. Plus she had his arms trapped in her embrace. And she was soft. So he settled for giving Alex an angry glare. What the hell, man? Where have you been? And why did you knock me out? Alex gave an aggrieved sigh. I didn't knock you out. You just got overloaded by an hour's worth of dispelled clone memories. You'll have to be careful about how many you dispel at once. As for where I was, he shrugged, I was busy organizing said memories. Naruto's anger was quickly replaced by curiosity. What do you mean, organizing? Alex's own eyes were filled with an intense enthusiasm. Wake up Kina and I'll show you both. I would, but my arms are stuck. Naruto retorted irritably, you do it. Sighing, Alex leaned down to whisper something in the sleeping fox girl's ear. Whatever it was made her moan quietly in her sleep and sit up, rubbing her eyes. Can't a girl get any sleep around here? She asked, annoyed, though she blushed as she stared at Naruto, who she was still sitting on. You can sleep later. Said Alex, who was walking away, come on, I've got something to show you too. Glancing at each other, Naruto and Kina scrambled to their feet and followed him. To their confusion, he led them to the wall of the chamber, where a plain, metal door stood. I don't remember this being here. Said Kina, who had searched the chamber over the years for something to do. It was, Alex reassured her, it was just being unnoticeable until now. He pulled the door open, after you. Both Naruto and Kina stepped through, finding themselves in a dark tunnel. Unlike the tunnel that led to the ceiling chamber, this tunnel was much smaller, the stone walls being a gray-blue color. The hallway ended with 3 more plain doors, though these had signs above them. The one on the left said skills, the one on the right simply said DNA, and the middle one said memories information. Through here. Said Alex, opening the middle one. As they stepped through, Naruto blinked. The room they had entered was much darker than any of the other areas of the mindscape he had previously been to, though that didn't say much. The room was filled with rows of low metal shelves, stretching into the distance on either side. Each shelf was packed with neatly aligned cardboard boxes, each bearing a date on the front. These, said Alex significantly, indicating the boxes as he led the two among them, are your memories, Naruto-kun. Until recently, they were just floating bits of information, with no order at all. Now, thanks to my work, they are arranged by the date they were made. If you ever wish to view one, just go up and open one. Naruto raised his hand. Yes, Naruto-kun. Well, Naruto scratched his head, that's cool and all, but how do I know which ones to pick? What if I don't know the date, just the events? You ask for the memory containing that event. Said Alex simply, and the path will light the way to the right box. Naruto turned his head, looking out among the shelves. So, if I wanted to see something that happened a few years ago. As the words left his mouth, the ground beneath him lit up, creating a ragged trail that led to one of the shelves before turning and vanishing from sight. Nonplussed, Naruto followed it, with Alex and Kina behind him. Rounding the corner of the shelf, Naruto saw the trail stopping at a certain point on the right-hand shelf, where one of the boxes was glowing. He glanced at it, then at Alex. "Go on," Alex prompted, "open it." Apprehensively, Naruto reached out and unfolded the flaps at the top, then peered in. Inside were several files. Opening those revealed a series of pictures. They seemed to depict, from the point of view of the photographer, a class at the Ninja Academy. Naruto looked up. "Now what? Do I touch it or something?" "Only if you want to," said Alex quickly. "When you enter a memory, you view things from your own point of view. What your eyes saw and your ears heard that day, you also experience. However, since it is just a recording of a past event, you can control it to an extent, slowing it down, stopping it and replaying it. Also, you can pay attention to things in the memory that you might not have picked up on at the time. This is because you still saw it, whether you noticed it or not at the time." Naruto nodded, processing this bit of knowledge. "The memories of your clones, on the other hand," continued Alex, who had slipped into his lecture mode once again, "get put in a different box from your own. Again, if you want to view their memories, just look for their box. It has a large Z under the date. Right, I think that's enough of a walk down memory lane, let's move on." He led them out of the room, ignoring Naruto's protestations that he wanted to stay. Exiting, Alex indicated that they should go through the right door. "This room is rather simple," he explained. "It allows you to see the state of your DNA, as well as the DNA of people you will eventually gain." The room opened onto a large balcony with a rail, beyond which was an enormous spherical chamber. This chamber was just as large, if not larger than the ceiling chamber. Floating in the middle of the sphere-shaped space was an unusual object. It looked as if someone had taken an extremely long ladder by the ends and twisted it so that each of the side parts curled around each other. The entire thing looped back on itself, making an incomplete circle. Naruto gazed at the twisted ladder, awed by its complexity. "Is that DNA?" he asked. "I didn't expect it to look like awe." "It's called a double helix," said Alex, "and yes, it is awesome. But, you notice how it looks kinda broken?" Naruto looked more closely and saw that parts of the floating DNA were slightly cracked and worn, as if something had attacked it. "What's wrong with it?" Alex sighed. "It shows how unstable your genetic code is. The virus I carry allows me to shapeshift because my own DNA is so unstable that it has no fixed form. Your DNA, however, still has enough solidity that shapeshifting is quite beyond you." Naruto gaped at Alex. "What do you mean, I can't? You're telling me I'm going to end up like you, but not have your powers? Da fuck. Hey, calm down. You will be able to use my powers, it'll just take time for your DNA to break down enough. For now, you've still got strength and stamina and all that stuff." Kina, who, until that point had been silent, spoke up. "Is there any way to speed up the process?" Slightly relieved at being presented with an opportunity to divert his landlord's ire, Alex turned to her, smiling. "As a matter of fact, there is. Thanks for reminding me, Kina-chan." "Any time," she said, sweat dropping at her friend's relief. Alex looked back at Naruto. "You remember what I said about Yaki being damaging to your body, right?" "Yeah." "Wait, what?" Both males looked at Kina, who was looking as if she couldn't believe her ears. "Nobody told me about this." "No. Well, it does. Anyway, one of the things Yaki does is that it's so damaging to you it starts breaking down your DNA. When that happens, you'll be able to use more of my power." "Before you say anything, no, we will not do that now. Like I said before, you start using Yaki and every ninja's gonna come running looking for you. I'd prefer to keep my existence a secret from everyone for a while, and if you're being questioned by the likes of Ibiki Marino because the council doesn't like you, eventually it's gonna come out. So, no Yaki for now." "What, who's Ibiki?" asked Naruto, doing a double take. Alex stood up straighter, as if reciting in front of a class. "Ibiki is the top interrogator of the village, as well as a total sadist. Steer clear of him." Kina frowned. "You've been stuck in here for the last 13 years. How could you know something like that?" "Before I answer that, we should go back to the ceiling chamber so we can sit down. This is gonna be another long-ass story," said Alex. Beckoning, he led the other two back to the ceiling chamber. Once they had sat down and gotten moderately comfortable, Alex scratched his cheek, wondering where to begin. "Well, I guess I'll start with where I came from." "What do you mean?" asked Kina. "You already told us." "No he didn't," interrupted Naruto, "he just told us his life story. He may have mentioned a few places, but he hasn't actually told us where he's from." "And if you'll stop interrupting me, I'll tell you," growled Alex. Naruto and Kina ducked their heads guiltily. "Thank you." Now, to start things off. I'm from a completely different world from yours. Naruto couldn't help himself, man, you just jump straight to the point, don't you? He said, grinning. Without warning, a newspaper appeared in Alex's hands. Shut up. He roared furiously. Let me get on with my goddamn story. The newspaper vanished again. Okay, one thing you have to understand is that there are thousands of universes in existence, each one corresponding with a story. For instance, if you have ever read a book, somewhere out there is a world where the events of that book are true. My world was no different. After the events of the Plague Wars, I wandered my whole world, gathering power as I went. Seeing Naruto and Kina's faces, he added quickly, when you live a life like mine, it's a hobby as much as it was a necessity. After things quieted down in New York, my city, I decided it was time for me to move on. I hoped that if I disappeared, the Black Watch might think that I died and the war might die down. I was not that lucky. If anything, it became worse, since I had become the mother of all plague carriers. More people became infected, alerting the Black Watch to the fact that I was still around. They immediately came after me, but it was too late. By the time they realized what was going on, it had spread to most of the country and then to the rest of the world. So there I was, the one sane man in a world full of monsters. The other ones saw how I still looked human and hated me for it. Because of that, some tried to kill me, probably to gain the secret of my humanity. However, I was too much for them, so I consumed and ate them, adding their power to my own. I don't really know how long things continued like that, but I eventually began to wish I could die, just to end the constant running away from the hunters. But my status as the world's most powerful zombie made that impossible. Then, one day Alex's captive audience perked up, hoping for a brighter turn in this grim story. A man came up to me. You might not think that is very strange, but remember, I had thought that all humans had died out on the planet, leaving me to face the infected. But there he was, a man dressed in grey robes and black framed glasses. He told me, my name is Storia. I know what you are and what you have done. But I'm willing to put that in the past, where it belongs. If you will join me, if you promise to use your powers for the benefit of my clan, I will take you away from here and we will treat you as the person you could have been. Storia's library. Storia sneezed violently, whacking his head on the crystal ball. Oh. He moaned. He looked down at the unfinished page, with Alex's words having just written themselves, you bastard, you knew that would happen. He growled. Then his face softened. Button Q. I wondered if you would still remember that. It does my heart good, old friend. Clearing his throat, he recited the next words that he knew would appear on the page. Naruto's mindscape. To this day have never regretted my choice. Continued Alex solemnly. He turned his head, presenting his two listeners with the side of his neck. As they watched, a symbol began to take shape on his skin. It looked like a section of DNA, the two outer strands of the double helix forming a sideways figure 8, with a thin, neat black line struck horizontally through the resulting infinity sign. Alex glanced at Naruto and Kina out of the corner of his eye. I am now, and I always shall be, Alex Mercer. Member of the Gorem. There was a deep silence at the end of these words. Naruto and Kina looked at each other for a moment, then back at Alex. Finally, Kina asked gently, who are the Gorem? Alex shook his head slightly to clear it. The Gorem are a group, a race, almost, that travel between the worlds of known stories, looking for different types of power. Meaning, if they observe a certain power, artifact, or ability, they will try to duplicate it so that they can use it themselves. Why? Asked Naruto, why would they do that? Alex shrugged, because power is an incredible thing, and nothing makes a Gorem more excited than the possibility that they can do something so incredible. When they fight, they do so merely to test what they can accomplish with a certain technique. Some of them appear to be serious, but at heart, they are all show-offs that love to experiment with their capabilities. The note of affection in Alex's voice told Naruto and Kina that he was also of the same mind. The Gorem also love to meddle. If there is a fight, even if they don't know which side is which, they will immediately try to interfere. He looked around. Any questions so far? You say that the Gorem travel a lot, said Naruto immediately, but where do they live? Don't they have a home? Oh, they have a home alright. Said Alex fervently, it's a place that lies between every universe. A world of its own. Just an empty void, with a few buildings and environments drifting about. Due to the fact that none of them are really tied to anything, the whole thing is called the Scattered Foundations. Wait, interrupted Kina, what do you mean, it's between every world? Alex eyed, alright, bear with me. Each multiverse is arranged by the worlds that make it up. For instance, there is a multiverse made up entirely of alternate versions of your world, with one original version at the theoretical center. Some worlds are closer to ones from other multiverses. However, no matter how close two worlds might be, there is a tiny gap between them. Inside that infinitesimal space, there exists an entire potential universe waiting to be tapped outside the sight or knowledge of any gods. And, for a time, it was the place I called home. Naruto asked, for a time? Well, I still consider it my home. Among the Gorem, the members are divided into houses depending on what sort of abilities they have. For instance, a Gorem with water abilities would belong to the South family. When I joined, because of my unique abilities, I was put in a house of my own. The Blacklight House. My problem was, I had no one else with me, which left me all alone. Sure, the other families were friendly to me, but I wanted someone who I could call a family member. So I left, vowing not to return until I found someone who would join my house. The problem was that my own abilities were one of a kind. No matter how much I looked, I could not find a person who qualified to join me. And they would have to have my kind of powers in order to do so. But I persisted. I thought that, in the infinite amount of worlds out there would be the one, even if it took me an eternity to find it. Tentatively, Naruto asked, so, does that mean you're not on good terms with the clan? Alex frowned, thinking. No, I'm still on good terms. He said finally, I still keep in contact with Storia. And while I was traveling, I was also doing my job as a Gorem. Collecting whatever form of power I could come across. Yes, Kina-chan. Kina had put up her hand, you said you would search for eternity. How old are you exactly? Alex thought for a moment. I'd say 34,000 years by my time, give or take. He noticed the look of shock on Naruto and Kina's faces, what? I'm a living virus, of course I'm not going to age. That sort of makes sense, thought Naruto, sweat dropping slightly. Alex suddenly blinked and looked around, alarmed. Holy shit, look at the time. I've been talking for too long. You need to get out of here. Real world. Naruto jerked, not having expected the transition between his mindscape and the real world to be so sudden. Groaning, he stood up, stretching. Looking around, he noticed the large amount of clones he had made still training. What are they doing anyway, Alex? He asked inwardly. This. Alex released some of the memories of the clones that it dispelled. Naruto's eyes bulged at some of the instructions that Alex had given the clones. They looked immensely difficult. You want me to learn all of this in a week? Isn't that asking a bit much? Not really. Alex replied simply, you've got hundreds of clones getting it down at the moment and anything they learn, you do. At this rate, getting it in a week wouldn't be much of a problem. Not entirely convinced, Naruto thought of some of the techniques his clones were training in. Walking up trees without hands. Making oneself unnoticeable. That wouldn't be so tough if it weren't for the fact that he was still wearing bright orange, which was as not unnoticeable as you could get. Don't be pessimistic. You'll be fine. Now go on, you should practice your stealth. Sighing, Naruto walked over to the edge of the forest, where his stealth-practicing clones were situated. When one of the clones noticed him, it ran over to him and explained what they were doing. One clone would try to move through the forest without being spotted by any of the others. This was also used by the seeking clones as an opportunity to train their chakra detection skills. If one of the clones managed to see the hiding one, it would dispel, alerting all the others of the discovery. Naruto told the clone that he would be taking over the position of hiding. The doppelganger nodded and vanished in a puff of smoke. A few seconds later, Naruto received a slight pulse of memories as the hidden clone dispelled itself. Grimly, he jumped into the trees and began hopping from branch to branch, stopping occasionally to make sure no one saw him. After a few minutes of this, however, he received a surge of memories as a clone caught sight of him and dispelled. He swore quietly and another one poofed. This time he bit back the curse and instead tried one of techniques Alex had suggested. Concentrating, he imagined all the chakra in his system flowing inwards. As the chakra moved towards the center of his body, his limbs felt hollow and cold. Finally, the chakra stopped, packed into a tight ball. Quickly, he summoned a small amount of biomass and wrapped it around the ball of chakra. Good. You remembered what I said about biomass being invisible to chakra senses, said Alex approvingly. Since it was taking a lot of Naruto's concentration to make sure the compressed chakra didn't explode, he didn't think the biomass would hold it back sufficiently, he didn't answer. Instead, hoping to test his apparent chakra sense invisibility, he hopped over to a nearby branch, wobbling slightly. It seemed to work, but for some reason, without chakra in his system, he felt oddly fragile and weak, with a large lump in his chest which made balancing slightly difficult. He scowled. He would get the hang of this. He focused on another branch, this one further away. He bent his legs, preparing a bigger jump to compensate for his chakra-deprived weakness. He leapt. Bonkwam. His jump had been too short. Instead of landing feet first on top the branch, the side of it collided painfully with his forehead. The resultant daze kept him from trying to grab another branch in recovery. Consequently, he fell all the way to the forest floor, landing hard on his back and getting the air knocked out of him. There he lay, flat on his back, close to unconsciousness and unable to draw breath. A clone that had heard the thud of his landing came running. "Hey, you alright?" the clone asked tentatively. Naruto said nothing. He just lay there, his mouth wide open, trying desperately to breathe. The lack of air plus the headache from bashing his skull on the tree branch both conspired to eventually cause him to black out. As darkness gathered at the end of his vision, he had one last thought. This is gonna be a long week. Chapter 7. Formations, Introductions, and What You Tell a Friend. Time skip. 1 week later. Naruto awoke with a suddenness that was becoming normal, if still annoying, to him. He quickly got dressed in his usual orange jumpsuit. Alex had insisted that he keep wearing it. "If you can hide while wearing orange, you can hide anywhere," he'd said. He had a point, but Naruto was starting to get really sick of his clones yelling bullseye every time saw him. He reached back to pull up his hood, only to remember that he didn't have one. "I really am turning into Alex." He thought remotely, maybe I should get something with a hood. Alex probably won't mind me copying him. He probably wouldn't. Agreed Kina, he seems rather lax when it comes to people imitating him. As Naruto set off for the academy, he kept his head down in order to hide his now mismatched eyes from the villagers. If they were seen, some idiot might get it into his or her head that the Kyuubi had gotten loose and was going to kill them all. Naruto tried to imagine Kina destroying anything. The resultant mental image had him chuckling under his breath, drawing a few dirty looks from the nearby populace. He arrived at the academy on time. Upon finding the classroom and entering, the other new genin stopped their chatter to stare at him. Predictably, Kiba was the first to speak up. "Boy. What are you doing here, dope? This class is for people who passed, not failures like you." Naruto, to everyone's surprise, stayed silent. He just raised his head and glared the overbearing Inyazuka in the face. Kiba took a nervous step backwards, the sight of Naruto's brown and blue eyes reminding him of the fear Naruto had inspired the previous week. "That's what I thought," growled Naruto irritably as Kiba backed up quickly. Then he reached up and tapped his hit I-8, "I'm here cause I have this, mutt boy. Haven't you ever heard of common sense?" Stepping around the dog user, he began walking towards the back of the room. However, he suddenly stopped and looked at Akamaru, who was lying on the bench. "How do you stand him?" The white puppy merely made a motion which might have been the dog equivalent of a shrug, causing Kiba to splutter indignantly. Smirking, Naruto walked over to where Hinata sat with her head on her arms. Noting an apparent aura of gloom hanging over her, Naruto sat down, sighing. "Why is it," he asked his tenants, "that every time I see her, she's so miserable?" "Maybe she's had a really crappy life," suggested Alex. There was none of the usual humor in his voice. "Why don't you ask her?" Gently, Naruto poked Hinata's arm. "Hinata-chan?" he asked quietly. For a moment, the girl didn't react. Then, slowly, she raised her head enough for him to see her face. From the wetness on her cheeks, she'd been crying again. Then she saw Naruto. A warm smile lit up her face as she stared at him. "Naruto-kun," she cried. She threw her arms around him in a tight hug. Naruto was caught by surprise. Sure, it had been a week since the last time he'd seen her, but he didn't expect her to greet him so enthusiastically. After a moment she let go, blushing deeply. "Gomenasai, Naruto-kun," she stammered. "It's just he thought that I wouldn't get to see you anymore after that." She trailed off and looked away, hoping she hadn't made him angry by mentioning his failure. A shadow crossed his face as he remembered the dark feeling of despair that had overtaken him at the prospect of never being able to become a ninja. Then he smiled. "Well, Hinata-chan," he said, prodding his headband proudly, "it turns out I was able to pass after all, so there's no need to worry." "Anoif if you don't mind my asking," she began timidly. "Of course you can ask. What is it?" How did you pass?" she asked quietly. I mean," she said, seeing Naruto raising his eyebrow, "I thought that you couldn't retake the test." So how did?" Naruto put his finger on Hinata's lips, effectively shutting her up as she blushed a deeper shade of red at the physical contact. "If you don't mind, I'll tell you later." He jerked his head at the rest of the class, which Hinata took to mean when no one is listening in. Finally getting a good look at her blonde crush's face, she gasped, "And Naruto-kun, your eyes." Naruto blinked and then nodded in realization. "Yeah, they're different. I'll explain that later also." He paused for a moment and then asked abruptly, "What do you think of them?" He didn't know why, but it seemed important that he know what her opinion. She gazed at him thoughtfully for a moment. Well, they're both yours, but they're both different. I like them," she said shyly. At that moment, the sound of running feet came to their ears, along with the cries of "Out of my way, Ino pig. Move it, forehead." Naruto, as well as most of the males in the class, grimaced. It was Sasuke's top fangirls, Ino and Sakura. Things were about to become very loud. Both girls came bursting through the door, shouting "Made it!" at the top of their lungs. Then they both glared at each other. My foot made it through the door first, Ino pig. I'm gonna sit next to Sasuke-kun. Shouted Sakura angrily. Hell no forehead. The seat next to Sasuke-kun is mine. Ino yelled back. She turned to Sasuke, who was still staring disinterestedly out the window, completely ignoring them. Right, Sasuke-kun? She asked sweetly. Sasuke, who had only heard his name, looked around, scowling. HN. He grunted. The blonde turned to Sakura. See, he answered. He wants me to sit next him. Naruto rolled his eyes as another girl piped up. Bullshit. I'm gonna sit next to Sasuke-kun. No, I am. No, me. The situation quickly deteriorated into some sort of brawl between almost every girl in the class as they began competing for the coveted seat next to Sasuke-kun, who, as always, completely ignored his horde of admirers. They look like an avalanche, don't they? Naruto asked Hinata casually. Looking down at the fighting girls, Hinata giggled and nodded in agreement. Naruto smiled encouragingly at her. You should laugh more often, Hinata-chan. It makes you look prettier. Hinata blushed and ducked her head, which was fortunate because a few seconds later a stray blunt kunai whistled over her head, thrown by one of the dueling fangirls below. Naruto's face became one of anger. How dare they attack his friend? This called for retribution. Hey, Alex's voice suggested mischievously, it's been a while since you pranked someone. Hint hint. Good thinking, Alex. Naruto thought, I've got just the plan. He put his hands up in the familiar cross seal. Cage Bunshin. He muttered. Hinata looked at him quizzically, having heard him mumble what sounded like a jutsu. A second later, 2 clones appeared. Naruto nodded to them and they walked down to the bench Sasuke sat at. Hinata was confused. Why would Naruto create clones? From the look on his face, he had something devious planned, but how would ordinary Bunshin help? Unless. Hinata turned so that Naruto would not see her and made hand seals of her own. Byakugan. She whispered, activating her clan's bloodline. Her vision expanded to observe the clone's chakra. She gasped. Both clones had the same amount of chakra in their systems as Naruto did. Hinata remembered reading about a jutsu that produced such an effect in her clan's library. The Cage Bunshin no Jutsu. She watched as the clones reached the bench. But the tiny poof, one of the clones turned into a whoopee cushion, which the other clone placed on the seat next to Sasuke and then sat on. There was an enormous PBBBBB as the air in the cushion was abruptly squeezed out. The abused sack quickly dispelled itself in the following silence. Both Naruto and the remaining clone winced as they received the memories of the sack being squashed. The moment the cushion had gone off, everything had stopped. The fangirls had frozen mid-fight, staring stunned at the orange-clad boy in shock. The other members of the class, who had been entirely engrossed by the fight, swiveled their heads in unison to get a good look at the offender. What? Asked Naruto innocently. Some of the boys shook their heads at the blonde sympathetically. He's in for it now. They thought. While his stunt did shut the raving fangirls up, they were rapidly getting over their shock and becoming quite livid. The interloper had stolen their prize. They would make him pay. Before they could do more than gather for a charge, however, the door opened and Iruka-sensei entered. Hey? Iruka looked around the room. What's going on here? Sakura, rather predictably, was the first to answer. Naruto Baka stole my seat. She yelled, pointing accusatorily at said Baka. Oh, that's bullshit. Said the clone lazily, you can't steal a seat that was empty to begin with. Dumb bitch. He muttered under his breath. Despite himself, Sasuke nodded in agreement, having been the only one to hear. What was that? Asked Sakura furiously. Sakura. Iruka said tiredly, it doesn't matter who sits where, just sit down, all of you. Sakura, take the seat next to Naruto. When nobody moved, Iruka performed his patented big head no jutsu now. He roared. The assembled fangirls scurried to their seats as Iruka stood in front of the blackboard. Alright, he began, the teams are as follows. Team 1. While Iruka was calling out who would be on which genin team, Naruto leaned towards Hinata and whispered, I'm hoping we end up on the same team. What say you, Hinata-chan? Hinata nodded fervently in agreement. Team 7, called Iruka, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke-cha. Ah, take that Ino pig. Sakura yelled, shaking her fist at her rival. Then Naruto Uzumaki. Finished Iruka irritably, your sensei will be Kakashi Haddock. Sakura's victory cries changed to ones of horror. Both the fake Naruto and the real one smacked their heads on their respective desks. Damn it. They chorused. Next to the real one, Hinata hung her own head in disappointment. It seemed she would not be together with her crush after all. Teammate will consist of Shino Aburam, Hinata Hyuugan Kiba and Yuzuka. Your sensei will be Kurina Yuhi. Shit. Yelled Hinata, shocking everyone near her. They had never heard the shy heiress raise her voice before, let alone curse. Even Naruto looked surprised at her, but she didn't care at the moment. She was going to be paired with that dog. She could stand, he was nice enough, even with his obsession with bugs. Kiba, on the other hand, would use this as an excuse to hit on her constantly and try to assert his dominance on her. She was doomed. An aura of gloom descended over her again as she imagined being on the same team as that perverted dog boy. Tentatively, Naruto patted her on the shoulder. He had some idea of what she was thinking. Don't worry, Hinata-chan. You'll survive somehow. Glumly, the dark-haired girl nodded in acknowledgement. Then a thought occurred to her. And on Naruto-kun. When should we have our talk if we're not on the same team? Team 9 is still in circulation. Haruka continued blithely, Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akimichi. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. Naruto frowned thoughtfully and then said, decisively, well, after we meet our senseis, I'll come find you. Hinata tilted her head at Naruto, her wide eyes reminding him forcibly of an owl. Why? I dunno. Naruto turned his eyes on the doorway, I just have the feeling my sensei's not gonna be here for a while. Actually, Alex had told him that Kakashi Haddock was notoriously late to everything. Just then, the door opened and a tall, black-haired woman with red eyes and a dress made of bandages came in. Teammate, come with me. She said abruptly. Hinata, Shino, and Kiba all stood up obediently and walked out of the room with her. Soon, the other Jonin came to collect their genin. Team 10 got picked up by a tall, bearded man with a cigarette. As they left, Ino shot one last scowl at Sakura, who stuck her tongue out. Real mature. Quipped the Naruto clone next to her, very befitting of a kunoichi. The pinket rounded on him. Shut up, baka. She yelled. In answer, the clone stuck his tongue out, like Sakura had just done. She growled and looked ready to pound him, but a cough from Haruka made her remember herself. She looked around and realized that Team 7 was now alone in the classroom. Haruka-sensei. She asked Haruka, why hasn't our sensei shown up? Haruka shook his head grimly, sorry to tell you, Sakura-chan, but you're going to be waiting for a while. You ditching us, Haruka? Naruto asked, smirking, I notice you said you. The scarred Chunin rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Sorry, Naruto-kun. I have other things that need doing. He broke off, staring. He'd finally noticed that there was another Naruto was sitting at the back of the room. Haruka had no doubt that it was the real one, judging by the way the cage bunshin, because it couldn't be anything else, kept provoking Sakura. The real Naruto wouldn't be so stupid as to do something like that himself. The real Naruto caught his eye and grinned, putting a finger to his lips. Nonplussed, Haruka left without saying anything. Time skip. 3 hours later. Naruto sat slumped in his seat, bored out of his skull. It had been 3 hours, and their sensei had yet to show his face. To pass the time, Naruto had tried chatting with Alex. After clearing with him what was okay to tell Hinata when they had their talk, Naruto mentally went over what he had learned during the week. Some of the things he had definitely made progress in, such as chakra control and mastering the jutsu he'd learned from the Forbidden Scroll. Other things, however, still required some work. The stealth was coming along slowly, though using the biomass cloaking helped enormously. Suddenly, an idea to break the monotony of the wait occurred to him. He stood and made his way over to the bench behind Sasuke, Sakura, and his own clone. Sitting down, he made few hand seals. Kage bunshin, henge. He whispered, so quietly that the people in front of him could not hear. With a tiny puff of smoke, a brown paper bag appeared in his hand. He filled it with air and held the opening closed with one hand. As an afterthought, he sent a mental signal for the bunshin in front of him to dispel. Sasuke and Sakura were so caught up in their boredom that they didn't notice the boy between them vanishing. Shaking his head at his teammates' carelessness, Naruto brought up his free hand and walloped the bag in the other one. Bang. Sasuke and Sakura nearly jumped out of their skins. In the total silence they had been waiting in, the noise was deafening. Both genin whipped around, Sasuke with his kunai in his hand. They saw Naruto sitting in the bench behind them, holding the remains of a paper bag. Just checking to see if you were still alive. He said brightly, the bag vanishing from his hand with a puff of smoke. How did you do that? Asked Sasuke, you were sitting next to us the whole time. And how'd you make the bag disappear? Naruto blinked, slightly surprised. Well, since you asked nicely, you've been sitting next to a kage bunshin the whole time. Sasuke frowned, a what? Oh, that's right. You don't know what that is, Naruto muttered to himself, a kage bunshin is basically a solid clone that takes a lot of chakra to create. I've got chakra to spare, so that doesn't really matter to me. Glowering, Sakura said, so you've been somewhere else the whole time, with a copy taking up another seat. Why? Despite you? Naruto said bluntly, smiling. That was my seat, damn it. She exploded. The orange-clad genin held up 2 fingers. First, it didn't have your name on it. Secondly, his face hardened, you should have thought of that before you threw a kunai at Hinata-chan. Before Sakura could ask him what he meant, the door opened. A man with gravity-defying silver hair peered in. He wore a Jonin vest and a mask that covered the lower part of his face. His headband was worn at an angle which hid his left eye. "Are you guys Team 7? He asked lazily. Before his teammates could say anything, Naruto said quickly, "No, they're in the next class over." The man frowned. "Oh, thanks." He shut the door again. "Was that our sensei?" asked Sakura. "Yup. So would you chase him off?" Sasuke suddenly frowned. "Wait, there is no next class over." "Exactly." With another puff of smoke, a pie appeared in Naruto's hand. He hefted it, his eyes trained on the door with a hunter's intensity. "Let's see how long it'll take him to figure that out," he said evilly. Sasuke's own eye twitched at the pie the blonde carried. "Where'd you get that?" "It's a henge cage bunshin," said Naruto evenly, never taking his eyes off the door. Suddenly, he hurled the pie at it. As the baked good flew through the air, the door was opened once more by the silver-haired man. "Hey, wait a minute," he began. Splat. The pie hit him directly in the face, sticking for a moment before sliding off, leaving the Jonin completely splattered with the innards of the pie, his one eye wide open in shock. Naruto threw back his head and howled with laughter. Their sensei looked ridiculous. Even Sasuke snickered at the sight. Sakura, on the other hand, looked horrified. The Jonin's face now looked murderous. "There are no words," he hissed venomously, "that can describe my hatred for you three. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes." He vanished in a blast of smoke as he shunshined. "He doesn't like banana cream," said Naruto. Then he burst out laughing again. 5 minutes later. The three Genin stood facing their sensei, shaking. Naruto shook from still suppressed laughter. Sakura shook from fear of what the Jonin might do to them. Sasuke felt a combination of both. The silver-haired man was silently fuming. First his students had tricked him into going the wrong way, and then the blonde one had hit him with a pie of all things. He hadn't even had time to react, it had been so sudden. Still, the timing with which the boy had thrown the pastry was impressive. Plus it had dissolved into smoke when he tried to clean it off, so no lasting harm was done. "Alright," the three students stilled at the sound of his voice, "let's go around and introduce ourselves." Sakura put her hand up. "Yes?" the Jonin asked shortly. How do we do that?" she asked nervously. He gave her a deadpan stare with his single eye. "She seriously has to ask that? Just say your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies and dreams." "I'll go first. My name Kakashi Haddock, my likes are don't really have that many dislikes, me hobbies aren't for your ears, dreams for the future. Never thought of that." All he really told us was his name. Thought the rest of Team 7, sweat dropping as one. "Right, you go next, Pinky," said Kakashi, pointing at Sakura. Sakura twitched at the jab at her hair color. Okay. My name is Sakura Haruno. My likes include Sasuke-kun." She shot an adoring look at Sasuke, who grimaced. Then she scowled. "My dislikes are Ino Pig and Naruto Baka. Not to break your heart, but I'm not too fond of you either." The blonde shot back flatly. Sakura sputtered for a moment before continuing, "Well, my hobby as me dreams include." She stared dreamily at Sasuke, giggling. "Great," Kakashi thought dismally, "just what I need. A fangirl." "Okay," he said out loud. He pointed at Sasuke, who looked quite disturbed. "You're up, Grumpy-san." Sasuke squeezed his eyes shut, as if to deny the existence of such a horrible nickname. He had no such luck. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha," he said finally. "I don't really have many likes, except maybe tomatoes." Naruto snickered quietly. "My dislikes are too numerous to list, though they include pushy fangirls." Sasuke carried on, "And my dream," no, his expression darkened, "my ambition is to find and kill a certain man, after which I guess I'll have to revive my clan." "Well, somebody loves melodrama," Alex muttered, though only Naruto heard. "An Avenger, huh?" Kakashi thought. He looked at Naruto. "Alright, you with the heterochromia, it's your turn." "Heterochromia?" Naruto muttered to himself. "He means your eyes." "Oh, right." He looked up. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are ramen, pulling pranks, and Hinata-chan." The others looked at him in surprise at the last one. "Hinata Hyuga?" thought Sakura. I didn't know he even knew her. Though that explains what he said before. "My dislikes," he continued, "are vegetables, killjoys, people that give us perverts a bad name." Kakashi resisted the urge to duck his head guiltily, while Sakura looked askance at the boy. He ignored her. "And finally, I hate people who decide to take the law into their own hands. They think they know better, but they really don't." "Does he mean the villagers?" Kakashi thought apprehensively, his eye narrowing suspiciously at Naruto, who went on, not noticing the concern he had caused his sensei. "My hobbies are training. Trying to figure out what I can do and what my limits are. My dream is to become Hokage, though I'm not really sure how I'm gonna get there yet." He finished, looking serious. There was a long silence following these last words. "Not sure? What does he mean?" Kakashi thought. It seems this team is made of a fangirl, a breedy Avenger, and a Jinchuriki with an agenda. I wonder if they'll make it. Alright you guys, it's a bit late in the day, so you can go home now. Report to training ground 7 at 8 o'clock tomorrow for some special survival training. And don't eat breakfast, you'll just throw up. With that, he shined away, leaving an awkward silence in his wake. After a moment Naruto said irritably, well, that was informative. He looked at his two teammates, you guys going to listen to him about the breakfast? Baka. Said Sakura angrily, he just told us not to. I won't skip breakfast. Sasuke stated, a ninja needs food to function properly. If we're going to be doing survival training we'll need to be at our strongest. Agreed, Naruto nodded. He went up to the railing at the edge and made some hand seals, molding both chakra and biomass. Ninpu. Karasu Tasatsu no Jutsu. Ninja art. Crow Scout Jutsu, with a blast of smoke, a large crow with green eyes appeared on the railing, staring at Naruto intently. Go look for Hinata-chan, alright. Send word when you found her. The crow bobbed its head in assent and took off. Naruto turned to see Sasuke and Sakura staring at him. What? What was that jutsu? Sasuke asked suspiciously, I've never heard of one like that before. Oh, it's just a henge cage bunshin with a different name. Naruto lied. In reality, the only similarities the jutsu had with the cage bunshin was that the crow could dispel and send its memories back to its creator. That jutsu seems pretty useful. Sasuke said, partly to himself. It might help him in his fight against him. Would you teach it to me, please? He asked. Naruto felt Alex reeling in shock in his mind. Whoa. What is it? Naruto asked. Very little could fully shock the first blacklight. Sasuke asked nicely. So? What's so surprising about that? You don't get it. In most versions of your world I've been to, whenever Sasuke has asked to learn something from you, he's always been real about it and throws a fit when you refuse. So, what do I do here? Oh, you'll have to refuse also. Just tell him why you can't. I'm sure he'll understand. Naruto became aware that his teammates were staring at him, still waiting for him to answer. He shook his head. Sorry Sasuke, but I can't do that. Sasuke scowled, care to explain why? He asked through gritted teeth. Yes. Naruto said simply, the jutsu takes your chakra reserves and splits it between you and every clone you make. If you make 2 clones, you each have 1/3 of your chakra. If you overuse it, you could die from the drain. Sasuke's eyes widened at this legitimate reason. Sakura's voice chose this moment to rear its head. If that's the case, then how come you keep using it? Huh? She screeched, pointing at the heterochromic blonde triumphantly. Unfortunately for her, he had a response ready, because I have retardedly huge reserves. He grunted, I can make hundreds without feeling the drain, which is why I always sucked at making normal bunshin. At that moment, Naruto received a pulse of memories from his crow. It seemed that Hinata was waiting in the park. If you'll excuse me, I have somewhere I need to be. With that, he set his foot on the rail and jumped off. As he fell, he heard Sakura shriek with horror. Smirking, he filled his body with biomass so that, when he struck the ground, his legs barely felt the impact, although the road now had a pair of small craters where his feet had sunk into them. In an instant he was off, running at a great speed towards the park, where his dark-haired friend was. Sasuke leaned over the railing, watching the orange blur streaking off. No genin, he thought, could move that fast. Neither should a genin be able to create thousands of clones if the dope was telling the truth. What are you, Naruto Uzumaki? Secluded part of forest, near park. Naruto slowed down as he neared his destination. Up ahead, he saw Hinata seated on a bench. Since he was still in a mischievous mood after dealing with his sensei, he stopped and focused. His chakra flowed inwards and became trapped by a sphere of biomass. He remembered Alex telling him that all people subconsciously use their chakra senses when dealing with other people. If someone were to completely cut off their chakra signature, like he was doing now, even if they were in full view of another person, that person's brain might not recognize them because it couldn't detect their chakra signature. He might as well be invisible now. Quietly, he crept up behind the girl. She did not react in the slightest, except to give a deep sigh. Curious, he walked around to the front and crouched down to look her in the face. She looked very depressed. Maybe she thinks you won't be showing up, suggested Kina. But I am here, Naruto said sharply. Judging from the fact that, despite the fact she was looking directly down at him, she was still not reacting, therefore, she could not see him at all. Hinata-chan? He asked. Hinata blinked and looked up, over his head. What? She murmured, "Ith thought I heard N Naruto-kun, but no one's there." She put her face in her hands, "Maybe I imagined it," she muttered to herself, "and maybe IJ just imagined that he became my friend. After all, who would want to be friends with such a failure?" She shook as she spoke, as if the words hurt her. "That must be why he hasn't come. I must have imagined that he wanted to tell me something. Unable to take any more, Naruto stood, releasing the cloaking technique. You didn't imagine it, Hinata-chan. He said softly. The Hyuga gasped. To her, the object of her affection had appeared out of thin air, looking serious. And Naruto-kun. He took a seat on the bench next to her. Why do you think I wouldn't want to be your friend? Who says that you're a failure, Hinata? Hinata tried to speak, but no sound came from her mouth. Instead, she felt the burning of tears in her eyes, which she tried desperately to wipe away. Ooh, she moaned quietly, the tears flowing faster. Why do I keep crying when I'm around you? You must think I'm really weak. No, I don't. Naruto protested fiercely. He grabbed her shoulders and shook her. Why do you keep saying that you're weak? You're one of the nicest people I've met and I've only known you for a few days, so that's saying something. Being nice doesn't make you weak, so who's telling you that you are? Who is making you cry? For a few moments, she stared at him, her tears having stopped from shock. Then, haltingly, she began to tell her about how her family prided themselves on being emotionless killing machines and that, since she was no such thing, they called her weak and a failure. How her father degraded her when she slipped up even a little in her training. She told him that her father forced her to fight her sister, how her sister always won because Hinata held herself back to avoid hurting her. Naruto listened intently, growing angrier with the girl's family with every word she spoke about them. This girl was treated almost as horribly by them as he was treated by the rest of the village. Finally, she told him about the division between the branch and main houses. The main house treats the branch like slaves. It's sickening. She told him passionately, but the branch can't do anything because of a seal that the main house puts on their head. If the branch house members try to revolt, the main house can kill them instantly. She shook her head. Why can't we just live as one family, the way it's supposed to be? Naruto shrugged. I can't help you there, Hinata. He said regretfully. He couldn't help but feel slightly ashamed that he couldn't help her. But I do have something for you to think of if they ever call you weak again. If you fail because you can't use their skills, make your own. Don't make their strengths limit yours. Hinata looked at him in astonishment. He was asking her to disregard her family's traditions. Still, he had a point. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I'll keep that in mind. She said. Now that she had told him her problems, she felt lighter, as if her burdens had been lessened. Then she remembered something, we didn't come here to talk about me. Eh? Was Naruto's intelligent answer. What did they come here for? You were going to tell me how you passed. Hinata prompted. Her stutter seemed to have improved slightly. Oh. Right. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Where do I start? Alex, he thought, what do I tell her? Tell her everything. Alex replied seriously, she has been completely truthful with you so far. If you consider her a friend, you should do the same. If you say so. Naruto thought dubiously. Well, he began, after I failed the test and had my breakdown, soon after you left, I was approached by Mizuki. Mizuki-sensei? Hinata asked, surprised, what did he want? He told me that there was another test, a hidden one that, if I passed it, I would definitely be made a ninja. Obviously, I agreed instantly. What was the test? I had to steal the forbidden scroll of secrets from the Hokage's office and learn a technique from it. That forbidden scroll? Hinata asked faintly. She'd heard the scroll mentioned before by her father. But isn't it supposed to be heavily guarded? Is it? Naruto asked unconcernedly, it wasn't too difficult to grab the thing. Hinata felt admiration for Naruto. He must be skilled if he. I just used a Warak no Jutsu on the old man. Bam. Out like a light. Naruto continued, causing the Hyuga girl to face fault. Of course, she thought ruefully. Anyway, once I had the scroll, I ran to where I was supposed to meet Mizuki. When I got there, I started trying to learn one of the jutsus from the scroll. And did you? Asked Hinata curiously. In answer, Naruto raised his hands and made a seal by crossing the middle and index fingers of his hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He called. Instantly, 2 more Narutos appeared. There are 3 Narutos, Hinata thought, blushing as she tried to keep any perverted thoughts out of her head. It didn't work. I learned this. The boy explained, as the clones dispersed, not only are Kage Bunshin solid, anything they learn is transferred to me once they dispel, which helps a great deal when training. Hinata nodded, so you learned it, then what? Then Iruka-sensei came. He was kinda pissed and didn't seem to know about the test. Then Mizuki arrived and started throwing shuriken at us. It turned out he was just using me so that he could steal the scroll for himself before killing me. But why would he do that? Hinata asked, horrified. Naruto's face became serious again. Before I tell you, he began, you need to know that this is a pretty big secret, S-ranked, in fact. It's also the reason I'm one of the most hated people in Konoha. If you tell anyone, and I mean anyone, you would be killed for treason. I can tell you because it's about me, but you won't be able to tell anyone. So do you want to hear it? Hinata looked down, reeling on the inside. Naruto was entrusting her with such a big secret that if it was for him, she would do it. It wasn't as if she had anyone to tell it to. Except maybe Hanabi, but it wouldn't be too difficult to not tell her. She looked back at Naruto determinedly. Naruto was slightly taken aback by the look in her eyes. Naruto-kuni, swear that I will never tell another person your secret, she said without stuttering. After a moment, Naruto nodded. Mizuki told me that, on the night of the Kyuubi attack, the Yondaime did not kill it. Instead, he sealed away. He felt a wave of guilt from Kina. Sealed. Where did he seal it? Hinata started to ask. Then she remembered what he had said about the secret being about him. Did Hideki seal it in Sideu? She asked tentatively. Naruto looked down sadly. Yeah. I'm the container of the Kyuubi no Yoko. His fists clenched tightly as he spoke. I'll understand if you don't want to be my friend anymore. Hinata stared at him for a moment as he looked away. Even with his words of understanding, she could see that he would be hurt badly if she left. She reached over and hugged him. Hinata? He asked, shocked. Hinata remained silent and then said softly, I could never hate you, Naruto-kun, not even if you were the Kyuubi itself. You treated me as a friend when you didn't even know me. I will stay by your side, no matter what. Naruto was touched by this. Thank you, Hinata. He said quietly, but there's still more to tell you. He told her about defeating Mizuki and Iruka, giving Naruto his headband, meaning that he was now a genin. Then the Hokage had arrived and taken them back to his office, where Naruto had gone on a rant to the old man about having kept the Kyuubi's existence a secret from him. And so he should be angry. Hinata thought approvingly. Through the years of her observing the object of her desire, she had seen the coldness with which he had been treated by the villagers. If anyone had the right to yell at the Hokage, it should be Naruto, for the way he'd suffered. Anyway, Naruto continued, breaking Hinata's train of thought, after I calmed down a bit, I convinced Jiji to tell me who my parents were. You did? Who were they? She asked. Well, my mother was a woman from Yuzushiogakure, wherever that is, and a jonin of this village. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. And who was your father? A Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The nonchalance of this statement sounded almost comical in the resulting silence. Hinata's brain had gone into shock. Naruto-kun was the son of the Yondaime. How could anybody treat him with such disrespect if he was descended from such a hero? And Naruto-kun, do any of the villagers know about this? Naruto thought, frowning. No, I don't think so. He said, Jiji probably had that info suppressed or something. Moving on, after that I went home, fell asleep, and woke up in a sewer. And Nani? Hinata asked, completely confused. Naruto laughed, well, it looked a lot like a sewer. It was a tunnel, at any rate. So I walked down it and came out into a huge room at the end. Inside was a man with a black hood and a fox girl. Who were they? The guy's name was Alex Mercer, and the girl's name was Kina. Hinata raised a thin eyebrow. Alex. Yeah, it's an odd name, but apparently where he comes from, it's pretty normal. And so Naruto retold to the blue-haired girl what he had discussed with the man, the revelation that the fox girl was actually the Kyuubi, something that, in hindsight, was pretty obvious, Alex's own story, and finally, the fact that Naruto would become a shapeshifter that would eat people. At the end, Hinata sat there, processing the incredible story that the orange-clad boy had just told her. Not only was he the container of the most powerful demon in existence, but he was also the container of a shapeshifter that was thousands of years old, both of which had pretty much sworn their allegiance to him. She felt a sort of pride as she thought of how far he would go in the ninja world. Hinata-chan? Sounded Naruto's voice. Hinata looked around. It seemed she had gotten to her feet while she was thinking. Hi, Naruto-kun? She asked shyly. I know this is a lot to take in, but could you please keep the last part secret? It's something that not even Jiji knows about and Alex doesn't want anyone to know yet. Also, if the council gets wind of my becoming some sort of super-powered killing machine, they'd have me executed on the spot. Hinata nodded immediately, smiling. I already told you, Naruto-kun. I will not tell anyone why you're secret until you say it's okay. She clenched a fist over her heart. I will never betray your trust. Naruto's eyes widened at the Hyuga girl's words. This girl knew the whole truth about him, but she's still worried about him trusting her. She still wanted to be his friend. A warm feeling spread through his chest that had nothing to do with chakra. At Storia's library. Storia took his hands off the crystal ball and stood up to leave. Well, that seems as good of a place to leave it as any. He muttered to himself. Deciding to take a look at one of the books on his shelves to see what was there, he ambled in amongst them. He was bound to find a good one somewhere. After a few minutes of searching, however, he came across a person standing by one of the shelves, reading a paperback. The person wore green, loose-fitting clothes. His blonde hair was cut very short, with a few strands sticking out at odd angles, like antennae. The young man looked up and smiled sheepishly. "Oh hello Storia. What are you doing here?" Storia resisted the urge to roll his eyes. "I happen to work here, Nord. On that note, what are you doing here? I never pegged you as the scholarly type. If you spent more time with the rest of the groups, you'd have more info to peg me with." The blonde retorted lightly, smirking. The old spellwright grimaced. "If they're like that bitch Grace and that neat freak Mason, I'll pass on that. Nah, they're alright. Sure, Carlos is a bit of a shut-in, and Morris never leaves his cabin. I'm pretty sure Colt is secretly a voyeur. I mean, why else would he keep popping up in the..." "Your choices in friends aside, Barrow, you still haven't answered my question. Why are you here?" Storia interrupted, frustratedly. "Good God, I know he's an aeromancer, but that shouldn't make him this much of an airhead." Nord sighed. "The word on the breeze is that Blair is looking for some people to take into one of the worlds. Since I also know that Mason sent her here, I came to find her and try to get on the list." Storia studied him for a moment. One part of his mind was tempted to send Nord entirely the wrong way toward Blair as a joke. The larger part, the narrating part that did as the plot commanded, told him to do something else. Spoiler alert, Nord. I'm the one who told Blair to do that. Even if she doesn't know it yet, she's gathering a genin team to take to one of the Naruto verses. However, I have an offer for you." "Really?" Nord's gray-green eyes widened, and Storia could have sworn that the strands of his hair leaned towards him. "Do tell." Storia took a breath, braced for a wave of excitement. "I want you to become the team's Jonin sensei," he said quickly. Nord's eyes widened further and he grinned, showing a mouth full of triangular, sharp teeth. "Excellent." He breathed, "I've always wanted to be a sensei. When should we start?" Storia leaned back. With a look of insanity on the aeromancer's face, as well as the close proximity to those teeth, Storia feared for the safety of his nose. "Not for a while, although there is something you could do right now." "What is it?" Nord asked. "For God's sake, change your teeth back." Storia shouted, positively creeped out by now. "You look like a demented shark and that hair isn't helping much." Nord ducked his head guiltily. "Ah, sorry. Got carried away." As he spoke, his teeth shrank back into normal human ones. Then he frowned. "And my hair is fine, thank you. It looks like your younger sister went mad with the scissors and missed a few spots. Either that or you've got a whole colony of giant moths on your head." The younger man spluttered for a moment before turning and walking off in a huff into a passage of shelves. "Was that really necessary?" asked a voice. "Quite," replied Storia absently, staring thoughtfully after his conversational companion. Then he looked down at the speaker. It was a medium-sized gargoyle in the shape of a large stone frog with a long tail and dog ears. There were a few books tucked under its arm. "Organization, right?" Storia asked, referring to what the gargoyle was doing. "I'll be happy to take one of those off your hands." The construct shrugged and obligingly handed him a book. "Suit yourself. Less work for me, anyhow." So saying, it trundled off. The gray-haired man glanced at the book and then walked over to a chair to read it. With all the work coming his way, he would have to treasure these breaks when he could. What if Naruto has biomass bloodline naruhina? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.